Welcome to Mechs on Deck. How is everyone doing tonight?
Hey, gang.
We have
Doing
some
good.
very special guests tonight. Guys from Keycult, both Jorge and I said Jorge.
It's okay.
George.
You're allowed to say Jorge. That is
You're allowed to
Zach's
say
name.
either, yeah.
Is
That's
it
his
okay?
real name.
Making my mama proud.
All right. I'm a Texas boy, so that's
Jorge.
Yeah.
we're
Roll that R.
we're used to it. So, but yes, George and Zach, aka Loud of Laughs and Riot on the Bay from Keycult. How are y'all doing?
Been fine.
Doing great.
Chewy, how are you feeling? I know you were up late last night with your Baka build.
We're moving and grooving, man. We're moving and grooving. So anyway, if I'm a little loosey goosey, you
From all
try
the
taking you that's from all that grooving I'm doing, man.
Well,
You try
loosier
taking
and
care of
juicier
children
than
when
usual.
they're like, "Oh my God, Christmas! Do you know how many days are until Christmas?" I'm like, "Yeah, I could read a calendar better than you."
Chewy, you see the light at the end of the tunnel, though. You only have
It's
2 more days.
2 more. Dos Mas. So, but yeah, I'm good. Welcome. If you guys don't know who Keycult is, you are probably brand new in the hobby and have not been on Reddit yet. But Keycult, they make the nicest boards and keyboards in the custom community, the custom keyboard community. They make very high-end, very extreme detail-oriented keyboards, as well as designer innovated. Is that a word? I don't know. That's what
It is
there
now.
it is. Designer innovation. It's like one of the anyway.
Those are the word clouds that we use all the time.
So, but yeah, real quick shout out to our sponsors. You can go to mechsondeck.dixiemech.com to pick up GMK DualShot to put on your brand new Keycult board that hopefully you got in on. We'll talk about that in a minute. You can go to switchmod.net/mechsondeck for 4% off your lube and springs and other awesome stuff. And GMK Metaverse on its way in January. Be prepared for that. And last but not least, Zap Cables make some of the best cables, if not the best cables in the business. Be sure to go check that out. You can get on a cable run or buy a DIY kit. He's also got some really cool desk mats and stickers and stuff like that. Anyway, speaking of stickers, I just put this bad boy on. Look at that. Oof, right next to Zap. Nice. And beautiful. Still getting some air bubbles out. You know it, dude. So, Keycult, welcome.
Thank
for
you.
having us.
I've been waiting for this for days.
Days, weeks, months, years.
Yeah. I don't know if it's been at least since I knew about it. I've been waiting for it.
So we actually met these guys IRL at the NorCal meetup. And I was just like, "Hey, cool. Hey, I'm Chewy. What's your Discord? Let's get this interview going." I talked to Mr. Jorge first, and he was beautifully dressed in a beautiful sweater, I believe.
Aww.
You're actually
Yeah.
So my favorite part of our if you guys haven't seen our NorCal meetup video, there's a really funny part of George whenever Huey opens up his Rukia and writes in it. You can see George like literally do this. He goes.
Nice.
It's my favorite part of the entire
Nice. Sounds good.
He just
That's my
peeks his
move.
head in.
Yeah.
It's like, "Hey guys, I'm here."
Subtle peek.
So
Nice.
No, it definitely was awesome to meet y'all out there. I mean, I feel like every time I see a Keycult board, I'm just like more and more blown away with the craftsmanship and the level of QC that comes out of y'all's work. Everything that y'all do is just like, it's just done so well. Super high end and especially even at the price. I know they sell for insane prices on the aftermarket, but the price point that you offer things for, it's an insane value opinion. So
I
props on
appreciate that.
Yeah, we certainly
I
appreciate
think,
that.
I think that we're definitely at the upper end of the market in terms of price, but I do think I hope that that people do find value in it. So we're definitely not trying to compete on price, but just on trying to be the best thing that you can buy. So
I would say you succeed at that. Definitely. So real quick, we like to go through our fast four, which is top fours. So the first of the questions you can answer in any order. They don't have to be your 1, 2, 3, 4, but you can answer in any order of your top 4 favorite switches.
I'll go first. So I give George some time to think.
We'll make George go next. Go first
So,
on the next one.
I like I generally speaking prefer just really nice linear switches whenever I'm going for a new build. However, if I had to pick out top 4 switches, I would probably say in no particular order. Recently, I've really liked lubed creams. We actually had a board at the NorCal meetup that was a 160 Rev 1 with lubed creams. This is actually the first time I had built something with creams, and I really, really liked them quite a lot. I think the sound is really nice, and I think they're very smooth and feel great. So that's the linear switch that I'll be using for some time. I also really like, you can actually kind of see it right here is the Model F Kish Saver. It's flat, so it's hard to see. I really like Model F buckling spring. In terms of clicky switch, I think that it is my favorite by far. I really like vintage browns. I've only really been able to try them once. A while back, there was a, what was it? Is it like the MX 5000? That's the old split cherry board. It's like a vintage cherry board that is a split board. Anyways, and it had vintage browns in it that were really well used, and those felt awesome. And then before I actually started designing keyboards, I was mostly a Topre user. So also really just enjoy stock Happy Hacking keyboard. I think that is a really great feeling tactile switch.
There you go. I googled MX 5000 and it was like, look at this lawnmower. probably not the right thing. I did find the Cherry MX 5000. It was like
The switches on that lawnmower were just legendary.
You want to talk about an on and off switch that gets the job done?
It's revolutionary. I also really like creams. I think that those are really my jam at the moment. We only have 2 keyboards built with them, but I enjoy typing on them both. I'm also like a linear person, and I've also not been in the hobby for as long as Zach has, and I haven't tried a ton of switches, and they've mostly been like silent switches, like black inks and stuff. So I guess it's creams at the moment, inks. I really like the Tangies that we built that one board with. I thought those were really nice switches. And I'm having I also just really like vintage blacks, but that's kind of like a cop out answer a little bit.
It's not.
But
honestly, inks is the cop out answer. That's what everyone.
So a 2 out of 4 cop out answers is fine. I need to try out more clicky switches because I haven't, and I've just kind of assumed that I don't like clicky switches as much, but I haven't really tried out a lot of good clicky switches. So we'll see.
So
and especially and tactile switches as well. I haven't really, but
now I just want to see you build like a Keycult.
He mostly uses what I build, and I build most stuff with linears.
I almost want to see you build like a 160 with just box navies, just to like trigger a lot of people. Just stock box navies.
Yeah, I'm just gonna find some from the batch that broke stems too.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Throw in like a really expensive, really old set too.
Yeah. As your favorite student likes to say, pretty cringe.
God. At least you used it correctly.
It's funny because I feel like we keep having guests, like both Chewy and I are big tactile people. We keep having guests on that are like full on linear, like nothing else. So it's
Yeah.
kind of funny. I feel
You
like
know, honestly, I haven't. I need to. I feel like I don't have enough time to put a ton of effort into trying builds with all of these different switches. And if anything, I kind of want to try. I almost prefer when I'm building stuff. I'm generally building out boards to like test them out. So I kind of want. I almost always just use linears because it's the thing I know best. So I'm going to be able to better understand how this how the design of this board is maybe affecting sound or feel or something like that. Whereas if I try something else, then it's going to be hard to compare it to a linear build. So I tend to just try to build everything with linears, just because from a business perspective, it's the thing that makes the most sense. But I know that there are a lot of really great tactile, like Franken switches, especially that I've just honestly never built anything with because I just don't have the time. But maybe at some point I'll. I also really I prefer to lube switches before building with them. That just takes so freaking long that I also just need to find someone to who I can just pay to do it for me. But anyways, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thank you, Jacob Tien, for the tier 1 sub for 3 months in a row. Appreciate that, my dude. And the next question in the top 4 would be your top 4 favorite key sets.
I guess my most used key set at the moment has been Hamon. I've used it on like 2 or 3 different keyboards that I've had. I really like Modern Dolch. I think that it's like a beautiful key set. Key sets that I really want. I don't have Olivia, and I would like Olivia, and I'd also like a more like neutral keycap set, like I don't know, minimal or something like that. But we also have Carbon.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like the way that looks as well. So, but there's so many keycap sets that look like Nautilus Nightmares looks sick, and I'm excited for that. Rudy looks sick, and I'm excited for that too. And I think Rudy in particular is going to look really nice on the E white and brass 165 that I'm inevitably going to end up using. So I'm excited for that.
So I've been trying to think back while George gave his answer.
My 40 keycap sets.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So favorite keycap sets. For the longest time, honestly, probably my favorite keycap set of all time is just, and this is so boring, but it's just like classic beige. Because I just think that like classic beige original cherry sets, I think work with a ton of different designs. And also, I guess as a keyboard designer, I tend to prefer key sets that allowed the board to stand out more. And so I think the classic beige does a really good job of just kind of getting out of the way. It looks good, it looks clean, and then the board becomes the kind of thing that you can focus on as opposed to the key set. So that's probably my number 1 key set. Number 2, probably original Dolch was one of the first one of the first key sets that I really just wanted to have. And I really like it, think it's a really great really great key set. And I think that it also it was one of the first like GMK sets that was run, was recreating Dolch. I would say that as a follow-up to that, I think Modern Dolch is another one that I do like, and I do think that it is, in my opinion, better than original Dolch. I think that original Dolch, while it's really cool, is way too brown in my opinion, and kind of has that greenish hue to it that becomes especially obvious against certain like gray or neutral colored boards. And I think Modern Dolch does a really good job of cleaning that up. And then I guess this is kind of a cop-out answer. I don't know that I would say this is like one of my favorite key sets, but it's definitely one that I really like, and it's a more modern one, is Striker. I think that Striker looks really cool. I really like the shade of blue. I really like the sub-legends. And I also appreciate that it is doing something. I kind of like just the uniform single color with just maybe like the darker blue accent keys. I think it's doing something a little different than what a lot of key sets do, where you just have the kind of very standard like alphas and then modifiers are two different colors that are sort of contrasting. Usually alphas are, anyways. I think that I think the Striker was a cool attempt at doing something that's still refined but a bit simpler.
Very nice. So, this one I'm excited to ask because we're going to say no Keycult boards. Top 4 favorite boards.
Good job, bud. Good luck, buddy.
Yeah, I haven't used a ton of boards, like a ton of like custom mechanical boards. So I think Zach gifted me the TX87, and that's sort of like my cop out answer. And I really liked that because I actually called it the Zachy Special because it was a gift and it was really special, but we had to sell it to start the business. I really.
Well, what were the boards that you had before?
So I had a Leopold that I liked a lot.
The FC 660.
Yeah, and then I had like a bunch of CM Storm boards, and then I've had Keycults the whole entire time. So I think I've been spoiled. But like I tried out Thermal, and that was really a super interesting board to type on. Like I've never typed on anything like that before. And a board that and a board that I haven't gotten to try, but I'm really excited to get, and that's aesthetically just I think beautiful is Bauer. I think that Dixie did a great job designing Bauer, and I'm really excited to get it. I don't know if that was 4, but
it was some number.
it was a number.
It was
Good
there.
enough. Top 4 boards. Heavy Hagen keyboard. I think the non-silenced variant, like just the regular one, is amazing. I think it's even better if you lube the sliders. I think it sounds awesome, feels awesome. I really, really like that board. Kish Saver, which I have behind me, I think is also an amazing board. Super, super chunky. Feels awesome to type on. I've not really, I can barely use it because it would drive my wife insane, but have it converted, and it's really awesome. Really enjoy it. Dolphin Rev 2 is one of the first sort of like really high-end customs that I got. And it was actually built by Ken25, who runs PX Keyboards. And he did an amazing job with it. I think the board is really cool. I think it's really unique. I think the design of it is really interesting. Sort of much like, I think much like Keycult boards, it doesn't really cut any corners. It's definitely not designed for being cheap. It's like designed for being cool. So I really appreciate that. And then 4th, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it at 3. You know, I'm just going to exercise my right as the guest. Leave it at 3. No, I think. I mean, I could come up with another board that I like, but I actually think that those 3 are like one is super vintage, which is like the old buckling spring Type F. I think that that's just a really cool keyboard. One is sort of like a modern accessible board, which is the Heavy Hagen keyboard, and then one is kind of a modern custom. So, I mean, there are other boards that I like, but that I haven't owned. So I would feel weird saying them.
Absolutely. So then the last of the 4 is the one that has nothing to do with keyboards, and that is your top 4 favorite foods.
Oh boy, only 4. So my comfort food, I'm Venezuelan, so my comfort food is Venezuelan food. So I would have to say like my favorite food is arepas, which is like quintessential Venezuelan food, which I make all the time.
My dog also loves them.
Yeah, his dog has eaten a large, and he's stolen a large.
Like
amount
my
of
dog doesn't steal anything off the counter, but he like, you have to watch him around arepas. For some reason, he absolutely goes crazy for them.
Yeah. This is going to be a little bit of a side tangent, but this is a very funny story. One time I was making arepas and I had to rush out of the house, and his dog was here. And I leave the arepas on the counter. They're half made, so they're still mostly raw. I come back home about 15 minutes later, and he's like on the last one. You can tell that he's struggling. He sees me and he says, mentally, he's like, oh crap, if I don't wolf this down, he's going to take it away from me. So he goes ahead and wolfs it down. And that's the day that he ate like 9 arepas, which is essentially like a biscuit. So it's a lot of food to eat in one sitting. So it was really funny.
That's one. You have 3 more.
Yeah. I guess it's like I really like comfort food. So like I really like Korean food, like hot pots and stuff. I really enjoyed. I lived in Chicago for a few months, and I lived in like right next to like Little Vietnam, and I had a lot of banh mi, and it was delicious. And I'm trying not to eat as much beef, but steak, man, just plain old, good old, well, or not well, but you know, medium
cooked.
rare,
Well cooked.
yeah, steak, can't beat it. Shouldn't eat it, but can't beat it.
I was gonna say I'm gonna go with steak as well as my first response. Really love steak. Let's see. I guess I would say steak, bacon. I guess there's more of a category. Barbecue. First 2 are just 2 simple foods. Really enjoy barbecue. And then I'm kind of debating. I think I'm gonna go with pizza. Really enjoy pizza.
Who doesn't?
Great way of just getting some food into your face.
So, question about the barbecue though.
Yeah.
Are you big into the Carolina?
I'm a Texas style guy.
Okay, I was gonna ask about the sauce. Are you into the
No,
vinegary?
I much prefer the rub, and really big on brisket and other beef barbecue. Yeah.
So now that I'm hungry as shit, couple quick questions in the chat real quick. Favorite canned food? I don't know if I can name a favorite canned food. I don't really use a lot of things in cans.
I mean, if you include jar food, there is this Korean chili crisp that you can get at the grocery store that is legit insane. And
Wait, no, it's Chinese. It's not Korean, is it?
Or it's a language that I can't read, but I know that I really enjoy putting it on my food.
Yeah.
It's really, it's like a little spicy, and it's like chili crisp with like peanuts, and it's like oil, and it's delicious. If you can include bottled food.
Yeah, if bottled, kimchi, man. Love kimchi. Just eat it from the bottle, and then you just want to die the rest of the afternoon because you're going to die.
Kimchi pancakes, man.
Oof.
So good.
The only thing I can think of that I consistently get out of a can is the baby corn to put in like stir fry. And then I guess like beans, because
I was gonna say, like, what about like beans, like black
beans? But like I don't like just like, I don't love just like, ooh, black beans, awesome.
You know, it gets a bad rap that's actually pretty good in my experience. I cook a lot. I haven't cooked with it in a while, but Spam is good as fuck. And or shoot,
no, fuck it, dude, say it.
And like Spam stir fry is really good, and it was a go-to college staple for me when I was like, you know, I don't got that much money, but I want to eat. So rice and Spam.
Rice and Spam
Can't get cheaper than that.
Well, it's like you don't need to season it. It's already just caked in salt. So you're just like,
the Spam is the salt and the protein. So
and your arteries are just screaming, "Help me!"
It's fine. I mean, when you're 20 and you're already, you know,
yeah, they're gonna scream that later.
Yeah. I'm paying for that now. That wasn't 20-year-old problem.
It's past me. We'll get into that question a little bit. Is there a key set that looks good on any board? I would say white on black and minimal.
Yeah, probably.
Or what Zach said, beige. Classic beige looks great on pretty much.
You know, everything. I did find that it doesn't look so good on e-whiteboards because of the
because it's like too
yellow,
similar, but not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
but I do think that on any like colored board or anything that's not like white. Basically, it does look good on. Yeah,
Glizzo,
minimal and white on black are good.
yeah, the gray equivalent of white on black is Dolce, modern Dolce.
Yeah.
So
I
that
think modern
looks-
Dolce looks good on
that's
most
yeah,
things.
it's like too good.
If you can find like
So,
EPBT slate, it's pretty
it's another good one.
similar in style.
So
How did y'all meet, and how did Keycult come about?
Do you want to say the first bit, George, and I'll say the second one?
Yeah, sure. Zach and I have known each other for a really long time. We met in high school in like my junior year, his sophomore year, or something.
Like
We
15
did-
years ago.
Yeah, we did high school debate together, and we went to college together. So we've known each other for a really long time. We started Keycult.
So the first thing ever released under Keycult before we were a company was the original number 1 that I did a private group buy for in 2017. And so I've been a part of the keyboard hobby for like 7 years or something like that. Mostly on Geekhack. I've had various times where I've been sort of in and out of it. I've taken like, a year-long break like 2 times or something like that. But in 2017, designed the original number 1. First designed, did a private group buy with like 20 people who I just knew. Then didn't do anything with it. It was a ton of work. Even just doing like 25 boards was a ton of work. It was super stressful. Took a really long time to ship. Everything was way harder than I anticipated. I then, thought that maybe I would want to do another design at some point. In 2018, I decided that I started designing and then designed the number 2. And was planning on also doing that as just another sort of like really small private buy or something like that. I was just going to release like 10 of them because I really was wary of doing like a larger thing. Around halfway through 2018, though, I guess I'm a software developer by profession, I guess. Before doing this, I was getting a little burnt out doing that. I wasn't enjoying it as much as I had previously, and needed to. I wanted to take a break from doing that professionally. So I decided that I wanted to try to turn Keycult into a full-time business. But I knew because of my own personality and just how I operate, it wasn't going to be a thing that I could do just by myself. So I brought up the idea with George. We had been talking about starting a company together for quite some time. And we decided to try to turn Keycult into a full-time thing that would actually sustain both of us as like a full-time job. So we did that in 2019, and then we decided that the number 2 wouldn't be that sort of Keycult's like resurgence would like being like, okay, we're back, and we're selling 10 of $1,000 of a $1,000 keyboard. We decided that wasn't like a great idea, so instead, we sort of sat on the number 2 design for a little while, and at the very beginning of this year, released the original 160 and 165 that was sort of more based off of the original number 1, and then yeah, that's kind of how everything got started. So 2019 has really been the kind of first year that Keycult has operated as like an actual business, that we've been trying to do this like full time and trying to make it like an actual brand and something that is a sustainable thing.
Yeah. We have like we've been learning a lot, both in terms of like keyboards and like manufacturing and logistics, and because like fulfillment is its own separate beast, and dealing with factories are its own separate beast, and like designing a keyboard. So there's a lot of things that we're like learning along the way, and it's been really fun. And neither of us have like a background in any of the 3 things that I just said. So it's literally been learning as we're going. So
It's cool to find out that y'all have that relationship, that long history, because I almost felt like till I guess just now that Chewy and I were a little bit of an anomaly of we've been friends for a long time. We got each other into keyboards, and then we started doing something together. So it's cool to see that is
You
someone
got me
that's-
into keyboards, man. I was just you paid me back for getting you into PC gaming.
Very
You're
true.
like, oh yeah, well I'm gonna make you drop this much money. Well, I'm gonna make you drop this much money.
Yeah. George and I are the same way. We both of us get really into things.
Mhm.
We both get really into things, and so keyboards
definitely.
is the thing that I got him into. And actually, probably it's very similar. PC gaming is probably one of the things that he got me more into.
Yeah,
There you go.
I was the one who spurred Zach into building his own PC and stuff. So,
Yeah, hated it.
so one of the things that like being really good friends and really comfortable with each other, that has helped a lot is that, and also probably the fact that we did debate together is that we're really comfortable, sort of like disagreeing and like riffing with each other, which wouldn't like if that wasn't the case, then it'd be really hard to start a business with like your friend because
Mhm.
but we just have a certain level of comfort with saying like, no, I don't really disagree with that, I disagree with that, and that this is why. And we also like, and probably our most used phrase whenever we're talking about something is, this is my opinion but I could be convinced otherwise. And I think that just kind of helps us not get log jammed with like, strong opinions loosely held type situations. So
right.
I personally think that it's pretty easy to do business with Zach because of that.
I think it's easy to do business with me too.
Yeah. And he's really humble.
Extraordinarily humble.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same way for Chewy and I feel, because I feel like we have a way of like, we know we can get into a little bit of a scuffle, a little bit of a disagreement about something, but we can very quickly leave it and just be fine.
We're very irrationally angry about things that don't matter and extremely like level-headed. We had like a 3-hour argument about desk mats once. Like I'm saying, like long drawn out messages about desk mats and their place in the world.
Could we dig into that a little bit?
we
What
can-
were some of the points that came up during?
I mean, we went
honestly,
as far
I'm
as
just trying to understand.
we went as far as to like
what strong
listen,
opinion you would possibly have about desk mats.
we went as far as like because there's the gaming aspect of, is it actually that good of a gaming aspect? It's the protection of this $700 board that you have. It's like the desk and making sure you don't want to like. There's a lot of things because he's very gamer centric, and it's kind of it's actually very very showing of our personalities of working together, where I'm like, I have like Eric wants things to work exactly how it's going to work. He's like, I want the best, and I will give up if it looks goofy or whatever. I'll do it exactly how I want it because this is how I want it. And I'm way more like, it'll it's like it looks good and it gets the job done. So whenever we're like going through like a situation where we're like, he's like, I want to do it this way. I'm like, honestly, go for it. Like, it looks good, sure, why not? Let's do it.
And to get into, I mean, so I am heavy into like pro gaming. I'm like big into professional Counter-Strike and big into professional Overwatch. And so I'm not only am I big into like custom keyboards, I'm also like not as much now, just because I've kind of found a like mouse and a like setup that I enjoy. But I was big into like making sure I had the right peripherals. Like when I first started playing video games, probably, what was it, Chewy, like 3 years ago?
It was 2015, 2016. I think 2016 sounds more accurate.
So 3 years ago, I started getting into video games, and I switched from a wireless Logitech mouse to a Zowie EC1. And my initial thought process into that, because that was right when we first started playing CS a lot, and Overwatch had just come out, and we started playing that a ton. I was looking at it. I was looking at what all the professionals used. I never wanted my peripherals to be a reason why I did poorly. I didn't want anything that I could control to be a reason why I did something poorly. And it's a weird thought process, but I'm like,
No, I get it, dude.
pros
Like-
use mice for certain reasons. There are reasons why they use those. You look at CS players. There are people who've used the same mouse for 5-6 years. Obviously, they like it. It's not just a brand deal that's hiding behind.
I'm gonna trigger Osiris real quick. There's the, where is it?
The weight.
Oof.
Oh, your weight.
If I have not been screamed at about, because that's the overall never ending argument. You need a light mouse. Nope. 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 It's just the way he's like, no, he's like, statistics, here's proof. And I'm just like, nope, don't care. I like it. I just like what I like.
You know, I told him that, yet I have a final mouse that's like 30 grams lighter than the actual mouse I use, sitting just like not even being used. But so because I was into that, I never got into desk pads, and my argument always has been that they are inherently a less optimal mouse pad in itself than what you can get for a similarly priced dedicated like gaming mouse pad in terms of the way it tracks, how smooth it is, things like that. So it's one of those things. Are you looking for an aesthetic? If you're looking for aesthetic, desk pad all the way. If you're trying to hit a theme, desk pad all the way. You're not going to get a gaming mouse pad that's going to match your aesthetic unless you're into the weird Razer logo thing that's green and looks bad. And he was like, no, dude, it's fine. No one needs that. So it was just like back and forth about that. So
because while he's playing like competitive Overwatch, I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh, I'm like 9 hours into Stardew Valley, man.
No, I mean, yeah, I completely agree. It's like, hey, my mouse isn't the thing that's getting in the way of me being better. It's just I'm crap at this. So
yeah.
I don't have to worry about that. But I completely understand. Like for me, it's like camera equipment, and like because I love photography. And I really hate feeling like my gear is getting in the way. And that's sort of like it's ultimately like a fallacy because, well, not really a fallacy, but like 98% of photography is like the eye of the photographer and like composition and correct and just knowing how to use your camera. But there is an undisputable fact that just better gear produces better images. And sure, maybe it's like only like 10% better, but I want that 10% better. So I get it. Like it's not so much like I like gaming. I haven't the time to game as much as I used to when I was in college, and I've always played more slow-paced games. Like the game that I got the deepest into was like Eve, and accuracy and mouse tracking didn't matter. What mattered is my Excel spreadsheet skills. But I understand that like, feeling like not wanting something to hold you back. I get that.
Yeah, that actually goes with someone. I'm sorry. What was Big Bucknut? I think that was his name. Big Bucknut. Great username. Does gaming affect your Switch decision?
Not mine. My Switch decision is affected by whatever Zach builds for me or whatever board he's not using. Like I said, I'm not at the level of gaming where what I use to game will affect my performance. Because I'm just not at the top. I'm not at the top 80th percentile of gamers. So it doesn't really, I don't think that like me having the best statistical equipment would make me any better of a gamer because I just don't play enough. I don't have the muscle memory, blah, blah, blah. I don't know about Zach.
No, it definitely doesn't affect me.
Yeah, I personally used to think it did. I was like, the second board I ever built was a Tada with the Gatoron, or not Gatoron, the Kale Speed Silvers. I was like, these are gonna be so fast. It's gonna be better. It does nothing. The keyboard is not where performance lies. Do what switches you like. Do the switches that you like to type on.
Yep.
You like the feel of. You like the sound of. Don't let gaming get in the way. Now, I could see like if you want to float like under the click bar on like a Box Navy or something, you gotta have to build a technique on that. But
yeah, there are switches that are inherent. I would say not even better for gaming, but easier to type on. So like a lighter linear switch is going to have the least amount of resistance pressing down and releasing. But once again, like they said, just use what you like. I've been using 78 gram Holy Pandas for gaming for a long time, and I didn't see like a huge dip in
I mean,
performance.
just statistically, any like, unless you're at the top echelon of competitive gaming, it's not going to make a difference. Like, that's like saying that, like, oh, will good Nikes get like make
Make
me
you
able to be
faster. Yeah.
like, or like, I'm gonna get Nikes because I'm gonna go 1-on-1 with LeBron James. Like, no amount of gear is gonna make me good at basketball to compete with him. But like, for LeBron James, like, good sneakers make a difference because he's at that 99th percentile, highest echelon of athleticism, where that makes a difference. But like, most people aren't that. So unless you're already in sort of like, professional gaming, if you're like, for me, like, I'm really big into professional League of Legends. I like watching it. So like, for me, if you're not like, Bjergsen or Faker or someone like that, what mouse you use or what keyboard you use is not going to make a difference.
So what you're saying is that we need to start making keyboards for professional sports ball players.
Yes.
Yeah, sports ball players are.
I was gonna say,
easiest
so
on
what you're
Aftermarket.
saying is you don't need a Keycult to be a good gamer?
You got me in
Yeah.
a corner here because we do guarantee
The official line of Keycult is that you
Yeah,
absolutely need one
when is the Keycult gaming line coming out?
any day.
Yeah,
I mean, there are some pretty dang good gamers with Keycult boards, so
True.
I don't know.
yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, Scar having one of our boards was legit a big fanboy for me because
That's
it's like
cool.
I saw Scar playing on my TV and I was like, Dig was a team that I saw play, and this guy that I've seen on my computer was like, hey, I like your boards, I want one. What? It was a pretty big fanboy moment. And LeBron James does need a number 2, Big Buck Nut.
He
I'm
does,
sorry, I'm reading
yes.
chat.
Oh
If-
no, absolutely.
If LeBron is out there, or anyone with connections to LeBron, or any professional athlete whatsoever, if any of you would like a Keycult board, please get a hold of us.
How do you
I
feel
will,
about that? Zach
yeah.
is chilling it out. He's trying to give away the goods.
Yeah.
Hey,
We're trying to make big headways into sports ball. So
Yes. Because nothing says NBA professional like a Keycult number 2.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, the big question, I know I've been curious, and a lot of people, we've seen an exponential growth in this hobby in the last year and a half. And with that, the aftermarket has taken a turn. Some would call for the better, some would call for the worse. You guys are obviously not numb to what is happening on Mech Market. So you see a Keycult going up for crazy numbers. So what are your kind of thoughts on that? What is when you kind of first saw that board start selling for $1,500 to $2,000 to $3,000? What were your thoughts going into hey, these boards are now worth on the aftermarket to some people triple of what they would sell retail?
So, the first time that we really saw this, like, significantly, was after we sold the original number 2s. So I guess to start, even when, like, so I had released, this small run of number 1s in like 2017. People liked them, and then Hype Machina released some small number of number 1s because I was doing a collaboration with them. They had released some of those in 2018 and they had very mixed QC and lots of issues and took a really long time to ship out, and in general was like pretty nightmarish for a lot of people. And then we released the 160 and 165 to like way more people than we thought were going to want it. So like even at the very beginning, we were like, holy shit, there are a lot more people who are interested in what we're offering than we expected. And then we did the number 2. And one of the things that we really wanted to do was, at least at the start, we've now moved to this partial pre-order model where we do pre-orders for half the boards and then we sell another half as extras after. And that's in order to better respond to just the demand that we have. But at the start, we were like, we want to just make everything up front and then just sell in stock stuff. And because the number 2 was so expensive to produce, we only made 20 of them. So this was the first time that we really saw something that we made and it was really expensive to produce. We made very little on the run of 20 keyboards. It was only 20 keyboards at that volume, and even at the very high price that we priced it at, we were making very little on it. And then we saw someone turn around and like flip one of them for like $2,200 or something like that. And we were like, man, like this person just like made more on that one flip than like we made on this entire run. Like, like we legit, like this person made out ahead of us on like flipping one of these keyboards. And it wasn't, and we've chosen to look at it not as a bad thing, but rather, and I don't get like frustrated or mad when people like resell our stuff at high prices. We choose to look at it as a signal about the market, basically, and about like what people want. And so it means one, that there aren't enough Keycult keyboards out there, so we can continue to increase our volumes. And it two means that there might be people who, like, different people have different spending power and value money differently. And there are going to be people out there who are willing to pay a lot more for something than someone else. So one of the reactions that we had to seeing that is that, one, we started doing Vickery auctions. We've only done one so far, so I say Vickery auctions, but we've only done one Vickery auction. We did it for the number one Rev 1 quite a while back, and we are going to do another one for a small number of the remaining number 2s that we have yet to sell. And then we also started taking commissions. So we started letting people just commission keyboards directly from us, where we will have whatever design they want produced in the colors that they're choosing, maybe with custom engravings or whatever, custom materials, different things like that. And they're really expensive, but it's a way for people to pay ultimately the same amount of money that they would pay on the aftermarket, but now there's an opportunity for them to support us directly. So I don't feel like we have an obligation to keep aftermarket prices low, but I do think that it is a useful signal that can tell us something about different people, and about, where customers are, how many people still want our thing. It gives us more confidence, certainly, to continue doing large runs. So anyways, yeah, that's a bunch of varied thoughts about that.
Yeah, there's also not really a good. I mean, what everyone will say is like, oh, we should just have boards and that'll keep, like, and everyone who wants
You
a
cut out for a
you
second.
cut
Say
out
that
and
one more
missed
time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Basically, a lot of people will say like, oh, have an open pre-order for a board, and everyone who wants that Keycult can get that Keycult. And I mean, that's not without its challenges. And we are at a point where we're scaling, but we don't necessarily feel comfortable like taking on that much, like, because we don't have a warehouse. And
I mean, look at the state of George's. This is a room in George's house behind him.
So I like there's literally a physical space that I have that to keep keyboards. So there's just logistics that go into it that we don't have figured out. We're working on figuring them out, but we don't have them yet. So short of that, there's not really a good way for us to, even if we wanted to, try to keep aftermarket prices low, because like we're not going to ban people from sales for selling something that isn't their property. Like, I wouldn't want to do that on principle, and even if I did, there's no good way to enforce it. And as we grow and as we get more keyboards out there and more people who want a Keycult can get a Keycult, and basic economics, the prices will go down. But again, like, as we've been talking about since the beginning at the beginning of the stream, we've only been doing this for a year. So next year we will make more boards, and hopefully that'll help.
I think there's also an argument of like, want there to be that increase on the aftermarket, because it's like Zach was saying, it's a proof of the want and the need for y'all as a business, right? If you get to a point where Keycults are selling at retail on aftermarket or just barely above retail, then it's how do you are you done scaling at that point? Can you scale higher?
I don't. So I think that there's a so like, for example, large keyboard manufacturers like Logitech and HHKB and stuff like that, their keyboards sell at or below retail in the aftermarket in some points, and they're still successful businesses and much more successful than we are, because they're multi-billion-dollar corporations. So I think that there is sort of, if we even if we get to a point where Keycults sell for what Keycults retail, that's still a market, and we're still serving that market, and that's not like all of a sudden like, oh, we need to scale back and produce less. That just means that we're at a good market fit, in my opinion, because it's like ultimately we're a retail brand, and even like large luxury brands like Ferrari and Lamborghini, like just because a 2015 Ferrari sells for less than what you bought it for doesn't mean that that car is no longer engineered well. Or like even a lesser example, like a Porsche, like you buy a Porsche or an Audi, and you don't expect to resell it for more than you bought it for, but that's still a well manufactured, well engineered car, that people want to buy, people desire. So I think that these are just like, ultimately these are just growing pains, and like as high end keyboard manufacturers produce more, then the market will sort of stabilize. Because you see this with like, you don't just see this with keyboards, right? You see it with like keycap sets. You see this with like everything that's like custom and premium in the keyboard world. There's just like a scarcity because more people are entering, and as people like Dixie and novel keys and stuff, they grow, then that'll sort of level out, and that's okay.
So, and it is interesting with the aftermarket. A lot of Keycult is often, Keycult and TGR, they're often tossed in the same, most of the time they're tossed in the same equation, with quality and those price increases. And, something that I've always kind of found interesting is that, and not that this is a slam against you, but you also have a lot. Now you've made a very good product, and then very, very popular people in the community have said, this is the best, this is my favorite. You have someone like Nathan Kim going, this is my Keycult #2, it's the best board I've ever built. And then he says that to 700 to 1,000 people, and they go, okay, well then that's clearly the best one. And then that slowly dials up. And then of course on top of that, Jorge, you touched on this, of course, is like it's these boards are bought in the aftermarket for what people are willing to pay for them. And so you can't, if someone goes, oh, I can't afford a Keycult, it's worth $3,000. It's like, well, it's worth $3,000 to someone else.
Yeah.
Who $3,000 to them is not nearly as much as it is to you. So, like, would I personally buy a $3,000 Keycult? No, I would pay you guys directly for a $2,000 Keycult and have Jorge carve his name into the back of
All
it.
of our commissions have my name carved in the back.
Just a rusty spoon.
And I think that I agree with you. And one of the things that we have decided is that this community doesn't need a one size fits all solution. It is made up of a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds, who value things very differently, and it is okay to offer something that is good for some people and not good for other people. Like, I wouldn't commission myself for a $3,000 keyboard. Like even for me, like that's not a service that makes sense for me right now. But there are certainly people for whom it does make sense and have been really, really happy with it. And I think that that's okay, basically. Like, I think that it is okay to offer things that make sense for some people and don't make sense for others. To your point, Chewy, about people like Nathan saying this is a really great board, and then a bunch of people just being like, oh, Keycult is the best thing, so that's the thing I want to buy. I do think that there is a real effect from that. And we have seen more people who are fairly new to the custom keyboard scene, like, asking how they can get our thing. Like, we get periodic emails from people who clearly have never built a board before, being like, hey, are your boards like the kinds of boards that you have to like build? It's like, yeah, you have to build it. Like, it doesn't come yes, you have to do that. But it's very clear that it's very new to the hobby. And they just heard about Keycult in the context of, this is like the best thing that you can get. and so that's why they want it, as opposed to actually knowing about the underlying product and saying, and then making the distinction themselves that like, oh, I really appreciate how well this is designed, or I appreciate the QC or whatever. They are just hearing from someone else that it's a good thing, and then because they happen to have the money to spend or whatever, they're just like, well, I just want that good thing right now. And I also think that that is a customer that is like worth serving at some point. It's certainly not one that we are able to readily serve right now, but I think that there are. I also don't believe in like. I don't think that the community is well served by like gatekeeping as well, and saying that like, oh, you have to have been in the hobby for 4 years to get a Keycult keyboard. You need to have been around from the beginning. Like, you need to have been sad that you weren't able to get into the original #1 private buy. And like I don't think that that's, you know, I think that that's ridiculous. I think it's okay for people to just want a really nice thing, and hopefully at some point in some future we're able to offer that.
So you mentioned QC. Jorge, you actually talked to me about your vigorous quality control QC. For those who don't know, your rigorous going through every single board and every single centimeter or millimeter of that board. Can you? We talked about this in NorCal, but can you go through that process?
So yeah, right now, we get all the boards, and we unpack them each individually, and and Zach and I sit next to each other in my dining room, and under light, we just kind of move the board around and see if we can find any like blemishes and anything that has like blemishes that we can find, or something that we find unacceptable, we label as B stock and we sell at a discount. And it's a lot of the times they're small blemishes, or small like anodization pits that are like hard to see, or
I'm laughing because George has better vision than me, and so he'll sometimes be like, "Zach, can you see this?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't see what you're talking about."
That's what
Like,
I feel like
I
every
literally
time.
can't see that.
Every time I see a B stock Keycult, I'm like, where is the issue?
I mean, that's not to say that like there aren't B stock Keycult out there. Like there's not to say that there aren't B stock Keycults out there that have issues that are easy to find. But like one thing that we will never sell are like big scratches on boards, or like big dings on corners and things like that. That's not even B stock for us. That's like C stock. We don't sell it. We do something else with it, or that just sits around, or we do like promo stuff. Like for example, like the Horde and the Alliance board were C stock boards that had just like really bad anodization defects that were visible all the time on the top face. We're like, it doesn't really seem fair for someone to buy this, so we sent it out to get custom anodized, and it's just like a fun thing that we did with it. So quality control is like something that we're really trying hard to keep up, and as we do more volume, it's going to be more difficult. And that's also not to say that there aren't things, even if we hand inspect every single board for the remainder of time, there are going to be things that I miss and that Zach miss. Just because like the 50th board of the day, you maybe have a little bit less scrutiny than the first board of the day. It's just human nature. And but on those, we apologize. We offer, we can send out a new board, or we give you a discount or whatever. We do the best we can.
Yeah,
But yeah, go ahead.
we see QC largely as, so we definitely do have very high expectations of our manufacturer, and we state those pretty clearly. But in small volume manufacturing, you're always going to have defects. We see QC and the sort of A stock, B stock delineation largely as signaling to people what they should accept, as opposed to like A stock means good and B stock means bad or whatever, right? Because as you noticed as you noted, like there are a lot of B stock boards that it's hard to find that defect. And there are also, I think that probably like 95% of the people who buy one of our keyboards would be happy with one of the B stock keyboards.
Mhm.
But there are going to be 5% that would be really unhappy, because even if it's a blemish that like is really hard to see and you can only see in certain light or whatever, it's on the bottom or something, they know it's there and they bought this really high quality thing expecting and wanting it to be perfect, and now their expectation hasn't been met. So we often, when we sell B stock boards, like the discount is small. It's like a 5% discount or maybe a 10% discount or something like that. It's not a major discount. It's not about saying this thing is bad and so it has to be sold cheap in order for us to sell it at all. It's just about saying that, like, be aware that if you get one of these, there may be a small blemish, and like just understand that, and you might just be totally fine with that. I personally am one of those people where I would just be totally fine with that. Like, in my opinion, after I put a keyboard on my desk, it starts getting a little dusty, like, you know, whatever, like any tiny little speck of something, some little anodization flaw starts blending in anyways, and I just become okay with it. I see it as like a really nice tool that I want to use, that I don't personally feel needs to stay pristine forever. If it gets little scratches over time, I personally don't really care because I'm enjoying using it. However, there are other people who buy these because they're collecting them, or maybe they're really into photography and they want to be able to take photos of it in super, you know, whatever bright light, and like those little things are going to kind of stand out more, and for them it really, really matters. So that's kind of where the A stock B stock delineation comes in. I actually don't know that on the whole, if you took a random sampling of Keycult keyboards, I don't actually personally know whether the quality of a random sampling would be better than a random sampling of some other maker. I just think the difference is that we're extremely transparent about what you're going to get. So when you get an A stock Keycult keyboard, it should be really close to perfect. And when you get a B stock Keycult keyboard, like, you're expecting some defect. And then if it's not like a major dent or something like that, you're like, great, this wasn't so bad. It didn't have a major dent in it.
It looks like
Well,
Zach-
Speaking of
I-
defects,
we can hear
Your
you, but your
video-
video is
Oh, is my video dead?
a little bit.
Okay, let me try to undeaden it. Maybe I can.
All right.
there
we're
we go.
back, we're
We're
back.
back. You're
All right.
back
Sorry
and
about that.
beautiful.
No, you're good. you're good.
Anyways,
But no, we definitely heard everything. So there's nothing there. I think it's important, like, how transparent you are. I think a lot of people, if you go and read things on your website, like even from your like your commissions, like not a lot of people are going to be as transparent about their pricing for something like that. You literally just straight up put, yeah, you can expect it to be about 4 times retail. Like, most people wouldn't put anything out like that out there. They would do it on a case by case basis. Obviously, you still do, but there's a precedent set by what you put out there from a brand that I think is really important, and it's reflected through everything that y'all do, from the QC to the boards being out.
it's
Transparency is really
certainly.
important to us.
Yeah.
But
I was gonna say that exact same thing. We've chosen to, like, whenever we are, if we're ever on the fence about, like, do we share this information or not, like, if there isn't like a really strong argument to not share it, then we just choose to share it because we just think that transparency is a useful thing. So far, it's served us really well this year. So it's definitely something that's important to us, and that is definitely where the QC. I think the QC stuff is largely a result of our commitment to being as transparent as possible.
and for like commissions, it feels a little bit, and it kind of, I would almost rather people sort of like self filter.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make a lot of sense from like a time commitment type thing to be like, everyone who wants to buy a Keycult and like or a Keycult commission, and they aren't expecting to pay, $2,000+ for it, to like email me, hey, could you guys do a Keycult commission? And I'm like, oh, it's going to be about $2,000+, and they're going to be like, oh, that's way more expensive. So it's like, it just creates a certain benefit to us, where it's like, people who email us about commissions tend to be people who are expecting to pay that much money because they've read and saw, hey, it's 4x commission and it's 4x retail, so it's going to be expensive. And that helps and it also, and if we didn't do that, then it kind of would feel maybe a little scummy, because it's like, hey, we're trying to like get you to come to us with like the false pretense of maybe it's going to be cheaper than it actually is. But
Yep.
Well, when you're buying something and you're spending that much money on something, you are expecting a good chunk. So here's a quick question for both of you: how do you feel that your awesome boards? If I'm going and buying a Keycult, I'm expecting basically perfection. If I'm buying something that's not a Keycult or something that has never claimed to be, hey, you're going to get the nicest board you've ever seen, or at least something that's as close to perfect as possible, I'm not expecting perfection. But if I go, hey, I'm going to go buy a Keycult, I'm expecting something very close to perfection. With that kind of mentality, where I asked the question of like, have you thought about how this you're almost like ruining a couple other companies, of not ruining, but maybe like going, hey, if Keycult can do this, why can't other companies do this? Why is it easy for them but not easy for these people? And I know obviously it's smaller batch orders, but I feel like you're in a good way pushing other vendors to up their game when it comes to QC and how nice of boards you put out. But in the other direction, you're also kind of making these boards maybe less valuable than they could be.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. And I almost don't want people like, I almost feel like we are, we somewhat have hurt ourselves by setting the QC bar so high. where we honestly stress about like, God, are these going to live up to like, the levels that we've already set for ourselves? Like, it's stressful every time a batch of keyboards comes in. And it's stressful all through QC, and then at the end we take stock and are like, okay, this is okay. Like, this is actually fine. The quality on the whole was good. There's plenty of great A stock. There's some B stock with minor defects. Like, everything is okay. But it's definitely really stressful. I guess, we are operating Keycult as a business, and you are definitely paying a premium to support that when you buy a Keycult board, right? Like, we probably, like, we sell keyboards at a retail price that we think will, in the long run, allow us to run this sustainably and pay ourselves reasonable amounts of money that don't make us like feel super bad for choosing to do this instead of me being like a professional computer programmer or something like that. So I feel like you should expect something more than maybe just like a regular group buy, like a group buy runner who's doing it sort of as like a hobby thing, right? Like, they're not running this as a business. They have never really made the claim that they're going to have like that level of support. Dixie is saying in chat that he like is, he's trying to hold himself to like the Keycult level of QC. On Bauer, and that he throws the ones that don't meet that out the window. So he's going even further than
we
we're
don't
going,
throw ourselves
right?
out
We
the
don't
window.
actually even throw our B stock out the window. We still sell it. So, but I also think that he's another person who's operating a business, right?
Yep.
And so he feels like he has a higher standard for himself as well that he needs to live up to. But I don't feel like, for instance, the boards that I sold when I did a private group buy were certainly not the same level of quality that we've seen. And I do
You
think
didn't have Jorge's beautiful
eyes to
take
look at
care
it.
of
Exactly. I just had my crappy eyesight, and I don't even think.
You
No,
didn't
I
have
had
glasses,
I had
right?
I had, I
I
had
did.
glasses at that point. I had maybe I wasn't wearing them. I don't know. But anyways,
I mean,
yeah.
also the sword cuts both ways, right? Because one of the things that we hear a lot of is like, well, Rama does unlimited group buys, so why can't you do unlimited group buys? And the answer that we give is because like Rama's better at it than we are, and it's just okay
Right.
to have competitive advantages. It's like I don't think like, and I don't feel bad like saying like, hey, Rama is better than we are at fulfillment. Like, they just are. They have
And they have like better manufacturing resources than we have.
so I think that people, I don't feel super bad when people point out the fact that Rama is doing things that we can't do. And other vendors, and people shouldn't hold other vendors like responsible because maybe they've chosen to specialize in something else or whatever reason. For like, I don't think that people hold vendors accountable for each other's strengths too much. And I think that people just need to be okay with some people being better at some things than other things.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can take the approach of like, we're just operating in how we want to operate. We don't concern ourselves with what the standards of other manufacturers are. Like just
Yeah, and
like
we
how
don't.
you vote for you vote with your wallet. Like in terms of if you're okay with some scuffs or some anodizing issue, you go with this vendor. If you're not, then you go with this vendor. So it's, I mean, you can completely, like I said, operate in that we don't, not that you don't care, but it's like it doesn't come into play when you're operating as a business. So you do you, and you're going to hold yourself to a certain level of standards.
I do think that one thing that I believe is a result of just how this whole community sprung up, right? Like all of these custom boards started um, as community-run group buys, right? Like all of them basically, all of these sort of high-end like aluminum, like CNC milled, whatever keyboards, all started as group buys, and they were all community-run. The early ones, like I bet no one was making any money. Everyone was sort of doing it because it was a really cool thing, and it was the only way to get this kind of cool thing. And I think that that's awesome. And I did it myself. But I do think that it set the standard that like every board is for everyone, right? Like when it was a community thing, the whole point was just like making this thing accessible to kind of anyone. But now, like it is impossible for just hobbyists to supply this community at the size that it's at now.
Yep.
And if you are operating as a business, you have to specialize and you have to decide that the thing that we're offering is no longer for everyone. It's for this slice. And like another business is going to be for this slice and another business is going to be for this slice. And then that's now covering the entire spectrum. And that unfortunately means that some group of people might be left out of this, particular offering. And I just think that as a community, people have to kind of accept that. And I think the fact that everything started as being very community driven and is now being more commercialized is rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. And I also think that it's really great that we continue to see so many run group buys. So I don't know. I think that I do think that there is room for all of that. This has been a little bit of a rant, and I don't have a great way
No.
of ending what I'm
You're
saying
fine.
here. But
You're fine. No, because
Great way of ending it.
I'm gonna stop talking.
stop
These-
talking with me.
Oh, just do it easy. Come on, Mandalorian. Just I have spoken.
I have some-
we talked about something very similar of that in regards to like interest checks for key sets and just key sets in general. We're no longer in the place where we have to push compatibilities into key sets for them to hit MOQ. We're not at that point anymore. Key sets are not selling 250, 300 sets. They're selling anywhere from 250 to 3,000 on the spectrum this year. So people are, cutting compatibility for pricing. It was funny in the Discord earlier. I think it was yesterday. We were having a conversation about the numpad issue of cutting the numpad. And it's like, well, a good majority of the hobby exists. I'd say probably in the 90 percentile exists without a numpad.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if you can cut $10 and sell 25% more, you're upsetting 5%. You still might get 2 or 3% of those sales. So you're really only losing maybe at the most 5% of your sales, but you're gaining 25 because you dropped the price down from 120 to 99. Like it's one of those things. That's what's going to happen as the community grows and you have people who are making a living off of this, which is really what we want to see. Because then we start seeing things like Keycult where things are being held to a higher standard that in turn pushes everyone up. Because if you look at it, and when we started, I said, I think that the Keycult boards are a great value. $500, $600 for the 60 and the 65, which is, I believe, what those were selling for. Is that correct?
Yeah, 5 and 585.
So $500 and $600 approximately.
Yeah.
That's a great value when you compare it to something that's like $400, but might have some issues, something that you might end up not being as happy with. Whereas with the Keycult, you have that expectation of this is going to be great, this is going to be amazing, and you're pushing everyone else forward. We talked about this many times about how the people at the top push everyone else forward, and it gets the bottom better and better.
Mhm.
And I'm excited to see where the community goes with that and what happens in the future.
Yeah, and I think that that's maybe the thing that I think a lot of people miss is that people think like, oh, this some of this stuff is being commercialized, and this means that I'm being left out. But it's not like that's the wrong dichotomy, right? It's not that you're being left out. It's that if it wasn't being commercialized, it wouldn't be happening at all, right? Like if key sets weren't being commercialized to a certain degree, just fewer key sets would be run because there aren't enough. Like if there were hobbyists or if there were hobbyists that could handle fulfilling 1,000+ key sets, then like people would be doing it. But no one is doing it because no one can handle it. So I don't know. I think that there are I see just as many community oriented runs now as I did 5 years ago, probably a lot more now than 5 years ago. And then in addition to that, you see a lot of vendors who are doing much larger runs of things than, or as you say, like are choosing to focus on different things, are focusing on having a higher standard and trying to push quality forward or push expectations higher or something like that.
So, and what I think is also interesting with that is you get we're a community where yes, we are commercializing a lot of things. There are more and more private buys now, or not. Private's a wrong word to say it. Maybe just lesser known and not as publicized, or basically non-geek hack, non-Reddit, throwing up for everyone to see group buys. They're happening. They're probably more of those, more like private buys this year than there were buys last year. And Metallic Trail said the perfect Discord buys. And I've had conversations where people go, I can't get in on this board. I'm never, everyone that gets a Keycult has an in. I'm like, well, one, no, they don't. And two, sometimes you just have to talk to people. There are plenty of people that I know that I'm like, they have lots of very nice boards. And I'm like, well, what do you do? It's like, oh, I just talk to people. I'm a part of the community, and you get in what you get out of it, and you get out what you put into it. So, just talking in Discord, making yourself known, putting your name out there, being friendly with people. That's the secret to getting into secret group buys. And so it's nice seeing that, while kind of back to my point of with all these commercialized things, you're also now pushing people in this smaller kind of subgenre group buys that are going, hey, I can do this too. I can do this too. And then those people go, I mean, look how the Keycult #1. You ran a private group buy, and you're like, I kind of want to do that again. And I'm excited to see more and more people start to shine through. And I'd love to see 4 or 5 different Keycults or Keycult-esque companies where it's like, hey, we know what we can do. We know we do it well, and competition breeds innovation. It pushes people to go better.
Yep.
I agree.
So I want to talk a little bit about like the design of the boards, because I feel like the Keycults have a in relation to a lot of the other boards out there, there is some very unique designs, the way the plates are done, specifically a lot on the bottoms of all the offerings that you have. Like, what is y'all's design process like?
So so George has more recently started contributing more to the design of various as yet released projects that we'll probably reveal more of in 2020. But but so far of all of the stuff that's been released so far, I've been the primary or sole design force. So I guess I'll take this question basically. I don't know that there is. So I will say that for both the #1 and for the #2, I wanted to do something with both of those that I felt pushed things forward in some meaningful way in terms of what people think about when they design keyboards. So when I designed the number 1, it was the first keyboard that I had ever really designed. I took cues from a number of different existing designs that I liked, and then created something that I think at that point hadn't really been created before. So I think that the Keycult number 1, for instance, was the first board that used like strips of rubber as a gasketing material to like press down on a plate to essentially create like the first sort of gasket mounted um, sandwich plate or whatever. I think that it was the first one that did that. The 356 Mini used an O-ring that went around the bottom, and that was a board that I took some design cues from and thought, this is kind of an interesting idea. Why don't more keyboards use some sort of gasketing material? And then I used that in conjunction with a sandwich mount that I really liked from the Dolphin Rev 2 and created the Keycult number 1. In addition to that, I think that at that point, the way that I designed the case bottom, where instead of the weight just being like a simple bar that kind of slotted in, like the whole case, the design that you see on the bottom is the same as the accent that goes around the side, and you kind of construct the case bottom out of 2 distinct pieces. I also don't know, that had probably been done to some degree, but I don't think quite to the degree that the number 1 did. So I didn't set out to design something that was just like novel necessarily, but I did set out to design something that wasn't just a rehash of what I had already seen. I didn't want to just create another simple top mount kind of fairly standard board. I wanted to create something that I felt was sufficiently different to like warrant a place in the world. And so thankfully it seems like that resonated with people. The number 2 then was basically more of a design challenge like that I set for myself. So the number 2 is inspired by the HHKB HG, which is this unobtainium like aluminum version of the Happy Hacking keyboard that was sold only to PFU employees. So that's the design inspiration from it. And it has some kind of crazy stuff going on the back with this interesting modular foot system that I didn't use. But one thing that I really loved about the HG is that it has this giant, like polished stainless steel bottom, and it has no external screws. So the design challenge for the number 2 was, how do I get rid of external screws? And that was more about staying true to what I felt was such an amazing feature of that board, which is having this giant expanse of polished stainless steel on the bottom that I just think looked awesome. And that requires being not interrupted by a bunch of screw holes. So that was just a bunch of time spent trying different techniques. I think I have like 5 different versions of the number 2 and some full deep somewhere that will never see the light of day that use different internal mounting systems to try to hide the screws. And then I eventually came up with the one that it currently uses. But I don't know that there was really a process with either of those where it's like, oh, this is the process I'm going to follow to come up with something. It was more like, I'm going to set some design challenges for myself and then just try to meet those. And sort of both of those, I guess both the number 1 and the number 2 started with, I have a certain external aesthetic that I want, and then how do I make the internals work? That was certainly the case, at least with the number 2. Was like, this is what I want it to look like on the outside. Now, how the hell do I make that happen? And to varying degrees, that's how the number 1 came about as well.
Because they're not like, I was thinking about it earlier, and I'm like, they're not like no frills designs. Like they do have their frills to them, but I almost put it as like it has a elegance to it. The designs of the boards have specific elegance to them. They're not. There's nothing cringy, Chewy. Or
Son of a bitch.
or tacky.
I like to keep work at work.
There's nothing like tacky or there's about him, but there is an elegance to the entire Keycult brand that is present throughout that I definitely really appreciate and love design.
Thank you.
Can we talk about boxes? Because holy shit. All right.
Yeah.
Real quick. Here's just your comparison. All right. I ran a small little buy. I feel like I'm talking to people that are like so pros, and I'm like, here's my little thing. This is what you get. Piece of foam that's got markings on it from me sorting stuff. Now you talk about how amazingly awesome your boxes are because they're just some of the best packing materials and the best presentation of a keyboard that I've ever seen.
So like when we first started, so the first 6065, we hand cut a ton of foam. Like we made this like jig, I'm sure we still have around somewhere, which is essentially a big piece of MDF that had like a stop and a fence that we like ran a big X-Acto knife and did that like 40 times. And like we had dimensioned out what strips of cross-linked polyethylene, what sizes we needed of it. Because we couldn't afford to like get it water jet cut. So we like, because we were, we had a set amount of money. We spent most of it on the keyboards, and then we had a very small amount of money for. And once that first one was over, the one thing that we wanted to change and that we said we could do better was the packaging. Because we wanted it to feel more like appropriate to get what we thought was a good board and like a good packaging. So again, this was we went through a couple of iterations, and then sort of I credit Zach with this. He like sat down one day and was like, I'm going to design better packaging. So I let him do his thing for about a day, and then at the end of the day, he like showed me a CAD mock-up of like what is now our current boxes, and they looked awesome. And we wanted to do something a little different. We wanted like a 2-part rigid box. And we bought the CNC router that I'm sitting next to explicitly to cut out foam. And we did that for the number 1 Rev ones. We did that ourselves. And we really like the way sort of when you cut out foam, just like to have it sit perfectly parallel to the top of the case. We like the way that looks. So we wanted to carry that over into the new packaging. And we also wanted to have a more sort of artisanal and more rustic feel, because I feel like a lot of packaging takes inspiration from sort of the king of packaging, which is like Apple, and it's all clean and very surgical. And our brand isn't really that. We're not really the clean and surgical brand. We're sort of the more
I mean, it's Keycult.
yeah, like so
it's like yeah.
So we designed this box to kind of fit our brand more. Boxes aren't, they're black and they have this like sort of textured paper, and it's more like subdued, which is sort of our brand. And then we got the wraparound labels from this company in Orlando called Mama Sauce, who is an amazing printer, and more people should use them. And we also got the QC cards made from them as well, and we worked with a designer to design out that stuff. A guy called Billy French, who's local. Yeah, Zach has the QC cards, and like I love those cards. That's probably my favorite part of the packaging is how those cards turned out. But yeah, we just wanted the experience to match like the unboxing experience. We've always known it to be important, and we had the money to make a more premium unboxing experience, and we wanted it to sort of match the packaging that you get the keyboards, and we wanted it to match the keyboard that was inside. So that was kind of our. And again, Zach was.
You don't need to
brilliant.
keep crediting. You don't need to keep crediting.
I do credit because it's partly jealousy that
You're cutting out.
You cut out there.
Oh, it's partly jealousy.
Sorry, you were complimenting me.
Yeah, the reason why I'm crediting him as much is partly jealousy that he's just able to like sit down and crank out something like that. But yeah,
well, we talked about. I mean, this is episode 4 of our YouTube channel was literally the difference between a high end versus a low end, and we talked about it's like y'all and Rama and TGR are people that I think pushed everybody else to be like, hey, get your box game up. Like, step it up. Because I opened my KBD-8X, which I had a 8X Mark 1 that came in a brown cardboard box with loose fitting foam. My KBD-8X Mark 2 was very well done and not anything I would expect from something like KBD fans, at least given the past. So I think that you guys, as well as I would say honestly, probably a Rama a lot had to do with it, but you
Definitely
guys as
Rama.
well,
Yeah.
where you, it's like, hey, this needs to be an experience. We talk about on our channel that keyboards should be an experience, and opening that up, you guys doing that and creating this whole thing has made it to where it's like, if it just shows up in a box, sorry for the Baka buyers, it's, you know, you want it to be this kind of thing, this like euphoric, you know, if I ever am lucky enough to get a Keycult, you know, being able to like open it up, be like, oh, you know,
And
when
I
you
think
guys can
this is-
successfully put a white dove in your boxes that flies out, like, you know,
And then put the little greeting card thing to where when it opens it does the "Wah" as well.
Yeah.
That'd be-
Nice, that's a good
Yeah,
idea.
a singing box.
some LEDs that pop out.
So I
closed
would
when you-
certainly give a lot of credit. Okay, so I have two things to say to that. One is that I would give a ton of credit to RamaWorks.
Mhm.
I think that they definitely pushed the envelope and really pushed everyone forward for sure. And they were certainly, as like, the quality of their packaging was one of the was probably the number one thing in my mind while we were designing and this packaging. And the thing we were thinking was like, their packaging is awesome, but it doesn't fit Keycult. Like it would feel like it feels perfect for RamaWorks, but it would feel really weird, I think, and like kind of counter to our aesthetic and our brand if we did the exact same thing. So our packaging was more about how do we make something that just like feels a lot more Keycult, but still feels really nice. And so I really appreciate that that it seems to be resonating with people, and to a large degree, it seems like we did that. So that feels great. There was a second point that I wanted to make that I've completely forgotten.
Well, so a point that I wanted to make was that I would also caution the community to hold everyone to the standard of like Rama or even like us,
Yeah.
because there's high MOQs for this packaging, and
That
there's
was
also
the second point.
there's also a large amount of cost that goes into
Mhm.
like shipping empty boxes to yourself, because volume is a thing when you're shipping. It doesn't matter if it's light, but if you have like a giant cube of boxes, it's going to cost a lot of money. So
Yeah.
it's an expensive endeavor, and like one that there was a reason why we didn't do it sooner, is because we literally couldn't afford it. So as you become a bigger business and you can start focusing on those things, it becomes worth it, but it's not cheap by any measure, and it's not something that I feel like should be the standard for every like
Yeah.
group buy or anything like that.
Yeah, that was exactly the point I was going to make, is that I don't think that this needs to be the standard for community run group buys, because they are valuing different things like than what we are doing. However, as like a business, I think it is okay to hold a business to a certain higher standard for the entire experience. And like Dixie was in chat, and I know that he is working on some cool stuff for the packaging for Bauer as well. But again, he is another business that's
Yeah.
offering a keyboard. And so I think that that's why Dixie, that's why us, that's why RamaWorks are trying to step up that game, because it's like basically saying, if we were going to operate as businesses, then there should be some benefit to that,
Yeah.
right? Like you shouldn't just be getting like you are like, if we are going to charge more money for something, then we want there to be a tangible benefit to it. Like
Yeah.
we want you to see that like that money isn't just like lining our pockets. Like we're actually making an effort to improve the experience. And yeah, we thought packaging was one way that we could do it this time. So
Shout out to Mechanisk, by the way. He has awesome packaging. He stepped it up like.
and actually, I will say that I remember, I think the original Fiel was like from the first ever run, which I believe was also in 2017. I think it was around the time that I did the original #1. But that had a custom box that I wasn't expecting at all, and was like, damn, this is really cool. And I think that it could have been improved. Like I remember getting it and thinking like, oh, this piece of foam on the top is thinner than I wanted, blah blah blah. But like I was so impressed, because since then, Mechanisk has become sort of a brand / business as well. But at that point, like, you know, I thought of it just as like an individual. It was still like felt very much like a sort of small group buy / run thing, and I was like, damn, it's really cool that he put this much effort into like creating this custom box. So,
He
yeah.
was like super young, by the way. He was like
He was like 17.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he talked about how he rode his bike because of, I don't actually off the top of my head know where he lives, but like
I think Norway.
Norway.
So
where
through the
driving
snow, presumably.
driving age is 18 over there, and he had to ride his bike with Fiels on the back of his bike.
Nice.
So, but Osiris has always talked about how Rama's, it's very Apple-esque.
Definitely.
It's very like Apple. I don't every time I see a Keycult, honestly, I'm not this kind of person. This is definitely more Eric's expertise, but it's like opening up a very, I don't know why, but it's like, because it's, you know, you guys are from America and it's like you're sort of the South. I'm like, it's like opening up a nice bottle of whiskey as a Keycult. Like
And I actually
That's a
think
cool-
I think that honestly, that's kind of what we would prefer to be associated with, right? Is something that's like more like, I think that a lot of what, there's a reason that we try to be, we are like also very, I think, public, right? Like we do frequent live updates. We've been doing like periodic workshop streams and stuff like that. We interact in Discord a lot. I think that like we're trying to kind of bring people into the Keycult story a little bit and like what we're doing, and just try to like let people see as much of it as possible, because I think a lot of people are interested. But anyways, I do think that we are trying to create something that feels a lot more like, oh, this is something that like a craftsperson,
like
like
rustic is the word I was thinking.
sort of rustic, and like I guess, as much as I hate the word artisanal, kind of like artisanal, as opposed to the sort of Apple style, which is like extremely well designed for sure, but does feel like a little bit more, I think sterile has a negative connotation, but like extremely precise, extremely clean. But it doesn't feel like it doesn't really feel, you never really get something from Apple and feel like, oh, a person packed this, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel that way. Like every single one feels exactly the same. Whereas we wanted something that felt like when you got it, you could tell that like, oh, the Keycult guys like packed this, like by hand, and like signed, you filled out a QC card for it or whatever. And it just helps people, bring people even more into the process and feel more like they're sort of a part of what's going on.
So it's actually kind of cool that you said like sort of whiskey, because it's like our cards and our labels sort of draw inspiration from, or at least like for me, sort of the small batch distilling where like all the labels are the same. They just like, you know, write in what it is and what oak barrel it came from and what year it was decanted and stuff. So it's like we like that. I'm personally really attracted to that aesthetic, and like I think I associate that with, you know, craftsmanship and quality, that like, and it also, someone took the time, it's like high touch, someone took the time to fill this out. You feel, because we touch the boards when we QC them, and we kind of want to translate that into the unboxing experience, and the QC card is handwritten, so that you're getting a physical manifestation of us touching the board.
Put a lot of emphasis on us touching
Touch.
the board, George.
Yeah. I want
What was it?
everyone to
Who
be
was it?
With
weirded
gloves,
out.
we wear gloves, okay?
What was it? UPass couldn't stop talking about knobs.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw that stream. You guys were really going after it.
Yeah, we were all about the
That's okay.
knobs.
I use pretty much every time I see Upas on stream, I mention his knob.
Can't.
But yeah, I definitely agree with like the thank you Big Bug
knobs on the
Nut
okay.
for the subscription, as well as
And
Tyson
Tyson and Dixie also subbed.
and Dixie. But no,
Also
I
missed
definitely
Japanese horror writer. Sorry. Last
Yeah.
thing, we missed that a while ago. Japanese horror writer. Thank you very much.
I definitely agree with like the rustic feel and the whiskey thing. I'm big into whiskey myself. That's why Chewy made those comments. But yeah, I definitely see it. And there's like the I keep wanting to go back to cars because you talked about Ferraris earlier. So I'm thinking of like the old school muscle cars where it's like that's the Keycult, whereas like some of the other brands are maybe like that's like the BMWs, the Bentleys, those kinds of
The Audis.
yeah.
That warms my heart because I own a '79 Corvette Stingray, and
go.
it's my project car. That's sort of I love those cars because it's like ultimately it's a different good, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
Porsche and stuff are good in a different way than like, you know, old school Mustang or an old school Corvette is. And none of them are better than the other, but people can have preferences.
That's a good way of
Um,
describing Keycult. A different kind of good, just in general. Like boards are good. I'm not trying to be like goofy or anything, but it's like I've typed on Keycults, and you're like, all right, I get it. Like that to the blind eye and the everyone that I work with, whenever they see me typing on a different board, they think I'm weird and strange, and half of them go, "What? Our keyboards aren't good enough for you?" And then I look them dead in the face and tell them no. But 90% of the boards in this hobby are going to be some of the best things that you've ever typed on. Then you go even further into the Keycult, where it's like, yeah, it is a different kind of good. It's the quality of things that honestly probably 60% of this hobby doesn't care about, but that 40% is who you're targeting, and that 40% is that's what you guys are aimed at, and that's why these nice boards are able to exist, because there are people that go, I like this and I like this, but I want this so much better, and then you offer it. So
Also love to hear focused on establishing a brand identity. Someone that's like into sales and like stuff. Like it's nice to hear that is an important piece of what
cares
y'all
about
do
brands?
as a company. Because
yeah, I mean,
I hate branding.
but I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about. Like the regular consumer may not think about, or they might think about it without realizing that they do, is that they support things because of the brand, because of the way it resonates with them. Spoken. You
Yeah.
start to establish yourself in that as a good effect as a whole.
Yeah, I think a lot of business is storytelling, and branding is essentially like, what story are you telling your consumers, and whether or not you want to tell a story. Like some people are like, oh, I don't really care about branding. But consumers are going to create a story for you whether or not you want them to. Or so I think that thinking about sort of how you want to be perceived is important, if only to be perceived the way you want to be perceived. That's a really roundabout way of saying it, but sort of if you don't create a narrative, then someone will create a narrative for you, and that might not be what you want them to think about. So yeah, like what we talked about before, our biggest driving forces are sort of like feeling like someone packed something, and also like being super transparent are sort of being high touch and being transparent are our big two. Like if we had to put a brand on Keycult, that would maybe be it.
Yeah, I think high touch is actually good. That's like a thing that we think about a lot. Is like how can we have a lot of like high touch interactions? Basically, mean we are directly a part of the thing. Like we are directly interacting with people, or even indirectly interacting with people. But like it is clear that we are involved. We are not just like overseers, like standing behind some one-way mirror, like an army of drones, like packing stuff up or something like that. And I think it is a challenge, and we are going to have to figure out how we are going to keep doing that while scaling up, because that becomes harder and harder. Like we just packed and filled out QC cards for 75 number 2s that we shipped out, and we're about to do the same thing for 75 more that we're going to sell as extras early next month. And then up next are 400 keyboards. So we're going to have to figure out scale all of that up, but I'm sure we'll find a way.
Absolutely.
I just broke one of my Zycos. Just
no.
sitting here on my my switch tester. There's no switch tester. It's totally fine. I was sitting here hitting it, and then I was like, pieces of this switch are just falling off. What's going on? Sorry. It's like my little
Thank
fidget.
God you
cube.
had it on the tester, right, before putting
Right,
it on your keyboard.
Yeah, totally. No, this one's like already been broken. So I do have one question. What is the worst Keycult board that has been sent to you? What's the one where you opened up and you were just like, oh shit?
You mean like from our manufacturer?
Yeah.
Like just incident. Obviously I don't want you guys to sit here
Yeah.
and.
Does it have to be from our current manufacturer?
No. And that was actually a question: is how many manufacturers?
Yeah, the one behind Zach is probably the worst board.
And is this from manufacturer or is this shipping damage?
This is both shipping damage and from the manufacturer. So this is, I think, the first ever. This is the first ever prototype that I received from the first ever manufacturer that I.
Well, I can tell right now the top and bottom are completely different.
Yeah. So okay. So there. First off, there was shipping damage. They packed it in like some thin foam, and there was this giant dent on the first corner. So as like the first time seeing this, I was like, boy, that's kind of a bummer. I don't know if you noticed, but these aren't great colors. This is not what I ordered. Okay, so I wanted a totally different. I had a totally different scent Pantone colors, very different. For some reason, there's this weird stain around the number 1, like. And also, this is like so deep. It's not possible. It's hard to tell, but like this just really came out very badly. It's hard to see here, but these holes are parallel to the top of the board instead of parallel to this face. So it's like deeper on the top here than it is on the bottom. Like they just like plopped it down like this and then just like drilled in. You can see all of these like machine marks around here. They didn't put any effort in smoothing this. Also, this is like sharp as hell. This whole thing here isn't like chamfered in any way. And then there's like 1,000 like anodization pit defect things on the side of this. Like, look at this. A nightmare. Anyways, so
with the lighting you have, it looks terrible. Like
and here's the other side. The other side is just as bad, I think. Yeah, the other side is just as bad. So like honestly, I almost just straight up gave up after receiving this. I was like, it's so this was the first ever prototype that I got, and I still to this day remains the worst board we've ever gotten, or I've ever gotten.
That's like infinitely better than I could have ever asked for of an answer.
It is way. I don't know that I've ever really showed it off in so much detail, but yeah, thankfully soon after getting this, I found a much better manufacturer that is still the one that we continue to use today, that we have a pretty long now relationship with and are overall very happy with.
So y'all just one manufacturer and that's it for what you've done in this past like year since y'all kind of like exploded?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep. They've done a good job of scaling up with us. And you know, we will for the foreseeable future continue to work with them. We've been really happy. We have a long relationship with them, a good relationship with them. They understand by this point, after much back and forth, they understand what our quality standards are. And yeah, it's been good. We will continue working with them. They are not this manufacturer.
You need to build that with just like your least favorite switches. Just turn it into a game.
Throw some Gretech Reds in there.
You know, I actually think okay, so I didn't show it off, but it has a carbon fiber plate. Even the carbon fiber was messed up. If you can see this, but look at that.
Oh wow.
Like, what is that? And like up here, there's an entire section. Like, I don't even know what this is. There's like, it's like literally, I think it's like fake carbon fiber or something like that. But anyways, the point is that these you can't fit a switch into this. I think I like shoved one in at one point, and they're way too small. And I feel like, I don't know, for some reason I would feel like if I'm gonna build it, I have to use the shitty plate that it came with. So I would need to like shave some switches down, or maybe like Dremel out the.
Or we can make the switches a little bigger on the CNC machine.
Make the plate, yeah. Maybe we could.
Make the plate.
I'm telling you, man. I'm not trying to throw TX under the board because Holy Panda switches are thick. My thumb still hasn't 100% recovered. It's like permanent. It's like the bone bruised. Like I built a TX75 with Holy Pandas, and I am a strong person. I will brag. Probably not as strong as Luke Barron because that guy's the most ripped dude I've ever seen. but I'm a strong person with strong hands, and I struggle to get through that build.
Yeah, it can be a challenge. I mean, it really depends a lot. I've been surprised and a little frustrated by some of the variants from plate to plate. Even that we've seen, like there are Keycult plates that are too tight, I would say, that are kind of a challenge to build, and it's something that it's like feedback that we'll continue to give to hopefully improve it. It definitely doesn't help that there are so many different switches that are different widths. So like the nominal width of a cherry switch is 14 millimeters exactly, and then it's supposed to be like plus or minus 0.05 millimeters or something like that. But like anything less than like 13.95 on one of the dimensions of the switch cutout will make it to push a switch in. Even like I think that this one here, I think when I measured it, it was 13.8, so that's 0.2 millimeters, which like doesn't seem like that much, but it makes it borderline impossible to get a switch in. So you have to be, and then CNC machining tolerances by default are 0.1 millimeter. So that is like the unstated general CNC machining tolerance. If you just like send off something, it's 0.1 millimeter. So it can sometimes be a challenge to ensure that you get like perfectly sized plates, but I know that it does make a really big difference when building. So it's something that we're definitely going to put more effort into making sure that plates. At this point, I almost rather, because there's so many switches that seem to be, so many of the aftermarket switches now or other switches seem to be bigger. Like I almost rather, I'm gonna like basically say, please err on the side of being a little bigger, because we don't do universal plates, right? Like we don't do, like our PCBs don't support ISO, at least they're ANSI only. Like you never get that weird universal cutout by the enter key. So like I think that I almost rather our plates be a little bit oversized than undersized, because it just means that the majority of people building with like, any of these new switches are gonna have a much easier time. But yeah.
Preach, dude.
Quick shout out, Krellbit. Thank you for the 6 months tier 1 sub. We appreciate it, as well as
You're not gonna read out his message?
Scree. APR Keyboards, thank you for the big host. Building a Keycult, now getting to see guys from Keycult.
Too bad you built. Okay, you know what? All right, it's time for me to spit fire. All right, I asked a tough question earlier. Now I'm just going to insult the guys. The 165 is a garbage board. You shouldn't even make it.
Oh my god.
Harsh criticism.
Yeah. I appreciate it though. I'm gonna take that to heart. I'm gonna cancel my order.
We need to cancel a lot of orders.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's tough. I understand. When you make a mistake, but as long as you own up to it and
and cancel a ton of orders.
Cancel all of them. You know, it happens. But
so is that going to be in the next biweekly update of like, hey, Chewy said we got to cancel the 65.
So yeah, the next on deck and ask Chewy, personally DM him on Discord what happened.
Yeah. We're gonna say it was Chewy, and then we're gonna dox it. Like any complaint's gonna be sent to.
Here's his name, address, work schedule, and list of his 5 worst fears.
Please pack your envelopes with spiders.
Yeah, we do have an update coming up on Saturday.
Nice.
I love your guys' updates. They seem like fireside chats, and they're amazing.
That's kind of what we were going for.
I'm just like these guys. Like I love that you guys. It's like you take, but then in the parts where you don't need to take yourself seriously, you don't, and that's why I love.
I'm glad.
Nice.
We do them for you, Chewy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I will say, do go give these guys a follow on Twitch as well as on their YouTube channel. They put out awesome content around the boards, as well as the updates that they put out. It's a good watch. Typing tests of the board if you want to see how to put it together, because something like a number 2 is a little bit different than used to. If you're getting a number 2, definitely check those out. Awesome stuff over there. It's got a very good, very high quality, nice aesthetic. Also fits the branding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can also, while we're shouting stuff out, you can join our Discord channel at keycult.io/discord. We announce a lot of stuff there. We announce big stuff by our mailing list, but most of our like random Twitch streams and stuff like that we do, we announce on Discord. So we don't ping very much. I think we try to keep like at everyone pings very, very minimal. So we try to only ping when we have
Not at
something
Mechs on deck.
actually interesting to say. So it's totally fine, but that's
Oh,
our
no,
personal
I just-
that's our personal thing is trying to keep so that people keep them on, and that it's actually like pretty high signal to noise. But yeah,
That's a shout straight at not G10. Just ping at everyone whenever you.
got it.
I mean, hey, you're joining a Discord of a content-based channel if you don't want to get pinged when the content happens. Sorry
Yeah.
about you, bud.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot I could do. We're just trying to get the noise out to the masses.
That is kind of a funny idea where it's like, stop pinging me. It's like, okay, and then you say that to someone who's like Keycult, who are like, well, sorry you missed out on the buy, but I didn't want to ping out everyone. You said.
We do ping at everyone for buys. That's the biggest. That's pretty much if we're gonna ping at everyone, it's gonna be for a buy. And we're also trying to ping at everyone for the bi-weekly updates. Because we feel like those are of general interest. The next one is gonna be fun. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's gonna be
Holiday
fun.
stream.
Holiday stream.
Holiday edition.
Yeah.
That's gonna be my next question: is what's next for Keycult? No, you just ran the 65 and the 60, so it sounds like some fires coming.
Yeah, on our schedule, we have another run of the number 1s. We ran sort of the all aluminum version. We want to do something with a more premium material for the next run, like brass or something else. And then after that, it's sort of everything is unannounced because we have some stuff. Zach sort of mentioned this that we've been working on some new designs and some other stuff that's sort of in the pipeline that we have yet to announce. So after the number 1 release next year, we're going to do some new stuff.
More specific, the thing that is definitely coming up next is that we are going to sell the remaining number 2 Rev 1s, which are the dark gray and brass. So we have 75 more of those to sell. 65 of them will sell as raffles, as a raffle, and 10 of them will be sold through a Victory auction. So that will happen. I believe we are going to do it on January 4th for the raffle and January 8th for the auction. So we were waiting to. We haven't sent out an email with those dates yet, but we will. We were waiting to make sure that that we like we had all of those boards sent to us in 2 shipments, and the second shipment was like sitting, presumably, I don't know, sitting in like a FedEx warehouse in Shenzhen for like a solid 10 days or something like that before it made any.
Same.
Yeah, so
I was updating daily, and I was like,
Yeah.
does it just say scanned, arrived at facility, scanned, or whatever? Oh my god.
Yeah, so I think that it was just okay. So you and I had the same experience. I think it's just because of the holiday, planes are, and so we wanted to make sure that that we were actually going to have them in time before before we announced that. We were like, surely if we schedule it like 3.5 weeks from now, that'll be enough time for this stuff to arrive, and then it was like not moving at all. So
It was like a week and a half for Chewy.
It was like 10
hilarious.
days. I was just like, hey guys, guess what? Update, nothing new.
yeah.
my wife, you know, I was talking to her. I was stressed out about it. I was like, this is just dumb because like I've told them and I just want to see this stuff. And she was making this joke that there's just some guy at the Shenzhen factory at FedEx. They're just like, I'm going to do it, babe. Today is the day. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to ship out that box. I don't care if it gets me fired. It's like this guy with these extremely heavy keyboards sitting in this box, and he needs this. It's like when I signed on to FedEx, I signed an oath. So,
Yeah.
but if you guys have any questions, by the way, just be sure to at Mechs on Deck. If you have any questions for our awesome friends at Keycult or for us or all of us, Jay Shuff, thank you for the 500 bits. Definitely appreciate it.
I guess we should also say that after like we've just took a pre-order for the 160, 165, and after when we kind of expect it to be done around April, and then after that's extra sale as well. But that's sort of early days, and things are going to change.
Yeah.
Inevitably.
It's
RGB Keycult incoming. No.
Nope.
I don't know if that fits the brand.
Yeah.
So
I don't even
where
think
did the-
Wilbo won't even design it for us.
Yeah.
I don't even make the. I don't think he's ever. Is Underglow on the ZL60 design?
not Underglow.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever put Underglow on anything.
I don't think there's enough
No.
power. Yeah, I don't think you can get enough power in a Zeal 60
Maybe.
to do Underglow and RGB and switch.
Yeah, it's not on the Zeal 60. I just pulled.
Where did the name and logo come from for Keycult?
Keycult was a name that I cannot take full credit for. It was a brainstorm amongst some friends of mine in the community. Originally, we actually thought that Keycult might be sort of a loose group of varying projects. I happened to be the first one to actually use the name for a project, and it ended up being. At that point, no one else was really interested in pursuing anything more with it, and so I ended up just sort of taking on the full Keycult mantle. The logo was a commission design. I actually paid money for the logo from a real logo designer. And I wanted to have it ready for. I had actually commissioned the logo design, I think, before the production run of the original #1, which doesn't feature the current logo, and it wasn't ready in time due to various delays, design delays, and stuff like that. But yeah, I had some ideas about what I wanted the logo to be, but it is a professionally designed key.
There you go. For those curious, Osiris named Mechs on Deck.
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I guess that was pretty presumptuous of me.
Oh
to
no,
assume that
that's.
they
I
meant
mean,
that
the
it was
questions are going to be
Keycult
asked
name
to you first.
I'm kidding.
He designed the logo. He named it. I was going to call it something else that I still think is hilarious, but he was like, "Nope, it sounds like a porno." And I was like, "All right, whatever, you name it." And he was like, "What about this?" And I was like, "Sure, let's do it."
Wasn't it?
I feel like that's also the dynamic. I come up with the best names in the world, and he just shoots them down.
I was like,
Every
"Dude,
time.
Thok Talk."
I was like, wasn't it Thok Talk?
He was like,
Such a
he's
good
like, "No, dude." Like, I was like, "Dude, Thok Talk sounds awesome." He's like, "No, dude, it sounds like a porno." It's like, whatever. They're dead. Eric, let's get back. Eric's very particular. I'm a lot more open book. So I know if I come up with something and Eric's not 100% sold on it, it's not gonna happen.
Now chat forever is gonna be like, man, you should have Osiris. You should have let him name it Thok Talk.
So whenever I might start naming my solo build streams Thok Talk. Thok Talk, Mechs on Deck, Thok Talk with Chewy. What is the appeal of centered USB ports versus left or right? Just by Gliz O.
I don't know, dude. Big preference. I don't know. I think.
aesthetic, right?
What's that?
You
The
like
aesthetic?
the preferred aesthetic. Like the reason why we went with one and 165 is because we wanted it to be aligned with the small key logo. I don't know if that's true.
Well, so okay, so for the I think that with the #1, so actually like the #2 doesn't have a centered USB, but the #1 now does. The original #1 didn't. But the newer ones do have a centered USB. I think that it looks better with the bottom and back design of the number 1, which has that curve. Like originally it was off center, but now I think that it just generally looks better. Also, that curve has actually increased in curviness. So like there's like the curve extends further in and is more subtle. So it's like there's actually less room to like place it unless you're going to interrupt the curve. On the number 2, you could make the argument that it would look good centered. I personally do prefer, or I just do personally like when the USB cable extends out from between the nav cluster and the alphas or whatever, like between F12 print screen. Like I like that alignment. So I kept it there because that was like I liked it. Kept it there. I don't know. So anyways, that's the reason, but I think it's just preference.
Yeah.
Like there are various reasons for it, but I don't actually feel it's not a design decision that I feel like super strongly about. It's just ultimately a decision that has to be made. One of the nice things about using daughter boards is that you can move it around without having to like change your PCB. You just have to get a different length PCB to daughter board cable. So that does give designers in general a lot of flexibility in where they place USB ports if the USB port isn't physically connected to the primary PCB.
Interesting. So this is a question that you kind of answered before, but I'm assuming that they're here. Do you ever plan on doing a fulfillment sale?
A fulfillment sale?
Mm-hmm.
So take
like
orders and then
Okay, is
just like
that like an open
yeah,
pre-order?
open buy.
Got it. Maybe. I mean, sure. I would say like it's like one isn't planned, but we do plan on eventually doing one, if that makes sense. Like we will continue to scale up quantities that make sense, basically. Like that we think that we can reasonably manufacture and fulfill in a timely manner and at a high quality. And eventually it will get to the point where it just becomes silly to like why are we setting a limit? Why are we setting a 1500 keyboard limit or something like that? You know, like you know, if it gets to the point where like I actually expect, now that I'm thinking about it, it might be that we always have a limit of like how many keyboards we are willing to manufacture, because I do think that there will always be some capacity. Like I think that a reason that a lot of like Kickstarters fail, for instance, is because you just have these giant. It's like we want to raise $20,000. Oh look, we raised $4 million to make 1 billion of this product or something like that. And it's like you have no idea. You have to 20,000 of them, and like everything is going to go to shit because you feel like you can't turn away that money or that demand or something like that, but really you're not well equipped to actually handle that amount. So it might be that we actually always have some sort of, even if it's internal and not publicly stated, some sort of internal limit of like, this is how many we're willing to do, and if pre-orders hit this point, we're going to like stop them. But so it might be that we just like keep increasing the limit until the point where it's not being met anymore. And at that point it is, implicitly a open buy or an open pre-order or something like that. So
Yes.
So brilliant. All right. Min-maxing your words. Keycult with a big ass enter.
yeah, any day now.
I would say the more people hold their breath, the quicker it'll happen.
Yeah.
Do you guys prefer Win keyless or with the Windows key? Standard TKL.
I used to prefer standard because I use my Win key a lot, but then I discovered that I could remap my keys to whatever I want, and I never use cap lock, so I remap caps lock to control and control to Win key, and that's fine. But I don't. Aesthetically, I think that Win keyless maybe looks a little better. But I also I'm fine with either. Like right now, I'm using a standard keyboard upstairs, but before that, for like 3 months, I use a Win keyboard. But I don't particularly care.
I prefer win keyless.
Win keyless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aesthetically,
It's
it's
all
more
around.
pleasing. I know.
Yeah, and I do think that there is like I accept that some people find more utility in having a win key, but I personally I do the exact same thing that George does, which is map caps lock to control and then left control to win key, and then you have alt, and I don't see any.
I map mine to the right of the short shift.
Oh, you use short shift on TKL?
Oh, I'll use split backspace on TKL.
Chewie's stuck in his ways. It's a TKL, but in his mind, it's
It's-
still a 60.
It's like this is a really big 60%. It looks great,
a bunch
but
of useless
I only
keys around
use-
the side. Yeah.
There's some extra
Yeah.
extra weight.
We should. Do you remember those old the old Korean boards that used to have the modular blockers?
Yes.
You could just start releasing a like an arrow cluster size blocker, and like you can just add blockers like to every one of the extra keys. And then you have the 10 kilo size, but you only have the 60% filled in.
We were no joke. We were actually joking about having a 65% made.
Oh yeah.
Where
But
it's like obviously you know how y'all's the weight is
Mhm.
where it's kind of like sets into the board almost like that, where it's like a 65%, but everything other than the 60 is just aluminum set into the the case, but the PCB still exists there as well, so it's just like a full PCB is just like
it
kind
is.
of a meme.
I am not a fan of 65%. I don't. I'm someone. So my caps lock is my layer key, my function key, and I use WASD for arrows. So I don't. Unless I'm being really lazy, and honestly, half the time, if I'm like watching a video at work, I have my TKL there. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I have these arrow keys. I don't have to hit 2 keys to do the arrows, but for like YouTube or something, just to scroll through. But yeah, I just don't. I'm for a 60%. I'm like, okay, I don't care about adding. I don't want to ruin the symmetry of a 60% by adding keys I can remap. And so that's like, and then it became a meme. Show me your no 65s in chat.
Even though I love
Next on deck,
65%, like
Yes.
65% are like one of my favorites.
Yeah, I don't know if my video feed is gonna get kicked off, but like I personally really like 65%.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll make sure that it's.
I'm controlling
blocked
it,
out.
so it's okay.
Oh, I'll go into YouTube, man. No, I'm kidding. But, but no, yeah, that I forgot to block. It's just an extra slab of metal. So where were we? Let's see. Can you go ahead? Heiny Bush asks, "Fuck, Mary, kill. Number 1, number 2, Alice."
I feel like I'm too biased.
Yeah, I feel like I might get fired if I answer this.
I've never actually I want an Alice. I don't own one.
Yeah, I've
I've
never
only
used
typed
an
on
Alice
them. I've
before.
only typed on them at like meetups and stuff like that. It would definitely be interesting to try. Have either of you used an Alice for an extended period of time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should, but mine's on the way. Mine's on the way.
It's fun. I'll answer this question, Heiny Bush, if you're still here. Number 1, Mary, love the bottom. Not that I have nothing against the number 2 bottom. I just like the uniqueness of the number 1 bottom more. And so number 2 would probably just get offed and then wouldn't need it, right? And then Alice, and for the quick night, but it's hard to play competitive games on an Alice.
I'm going to answer the question as well, since you answered it, because mine's different. So I'm going to fuck the Alice. I'm going to marry the number 2, because I like the bottom of the number 2 better, because it's cleaner, in my opinion. And then I'm going to kill the number 1, because if I've already got number 2 at home,
Exactly.
I don't
It's
need
hard
the
to.
number.
So all our boards are dead now. We have 2
Yeah.
designs.
Yeah, 2
And
designs.
2
one-
fell swoops. They've just
Yep.
both been killed.
Yep. Sorry about you, bud. Make a 60% win key. Let's start talking.
Yeah.
Let's see. Have you guys considered running a compact 1800 board?
Yes, that's actually that's a form factor that I would like to run eventually. We just have time. There's a lot of, little variants of existing designs that like I would like to do. But
I
it takes
really
time
like.
to George likes that layout a lot, and so he wants one. I don't know if it would be like, yeah, I don't know exactly what variant of like compact 1800 it would be. But I expect that at some point we will release something in that form factor.
Absolutely.
It's a fun one.
This one, actually, I'm interested to hear if this is ever going to be a possibility. You may not be able to answer this question, but would we ever see collabs like a Keycult or TGR drop, or with other brands, maybe outside of keyboards?
Yeah. Yeah.
A Keycult TGR would just break the aftermarket.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely interested in collaborations. I think it's a lot trickier than a lot of people think, because everyone, I mean, and honestly, especially for, I mean, I guess I'll say like especially desirable brands. Like if we did like a lot of people want a Keycult board, a lot of people want a TGR board. Like there's a lot of stuff that we would have to figure out in order to do a collab. Like who's actually going to fulfill it? What expectations are people going to have? Like people might have different expectations getting a Keycult in terms of QC or whatever versus getting it. Like both boards have very different styles. Like we have a very particular mounting style that TGR has a particular mounting style that we use, or that they use. Would we need to somehow like merge those two together? Can those things even be merged in any reasonable way, or would it just be like one of us coming up with a design and name on it so that like just for the marketing or whatever memes? So I think in order to do an actual good collaboration, I think there needs to be actual collaboration that happens, right?
Yeah.
Like actually like meeting and working together and brainstorming and like if possible even doing design work together. And a lot of that is tricky, hard to coordinate.
I mean, it would be hard to do with like another keyboard company or another keyboard person that has like a very, but I think that it would be easier to do with someone who, like someone jokingly said like Keycult Yeezy collab, I know that that's a joke, but it would be easier to do something with like a brand that does like shoes or something like that, and just say like, hey, we want to design a keyboard with you. And when we were first like, and something that I still think would be really cool, like when we were first like thinking of like Keycult, we tossed around the idea of like, well, what if we like get in touch with like a big celebrity person, like like, oh, let's do like a Keycult X Dr. Disrespect or something like that. Like something like that would be cool, because it's like they could have like design input on the keyboard, but like we are the keyboard people and we would design the keyboard, but they could have like input on it. And I think that type of collaboration would be really fun and would be really cool. That's not to say that like something like collaborating with like Yuxi is impossible, but I agree with Zach that there's a lot of like hurdles that would need to be crossed, because we're both keyboard designers that have design aesthetic goals and stuff that might be different, and it might be hard to reconciliate that.
I think that's a good. I have 2 things to say to that. First, George, your mic is popping a little bit. Can you check the connectors on them? And then 2, yeah, I agree completely and think that distinction makes sense. It is probably more likely to see collaborations with non-keyboard designers than other keyboard designers, because yeah, it's much harder to sort of like marry 2 divergent styles of designing keyboards than it is to take like we know how to design keyboards and you have an aesthetic or something like that you want a keyboard made in that image. That's a much easier collaboration that makes a lot more sense, and it becomes a lot clear who is bringing what to the table.
Mhm.
Let's be real. The Keycult Chick-fil-A collab. I feel like it's gonna be Dixie Chick-fil-A first.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
Bauer, the
don't
Bauer
wanna be
Chick-fil-A
stepping-
special.
Yeah, we don't want to step on Dixie's toes. That's definitely within his realm.
So how's it been working with Nathan at Teja? Mr. Teja types himself.
He's a lot of. I mean, he's been he's great. We we sponsor Teja Types. He builds a ton of Keycult stuff, obviously. I sometimes almost feel like, dude, stop building Keycult boards. They're just gonna get stale. People are gonna be like tired of seeing our stuff or whatever. Where I almost like, I also am. I get like nervous, excited a lot. I'm like sure that something is gonna go terribly wrong every time I see like one of those being built, because inevitably something is eventually going to go wrong. But then in my mind, it's gonna be like, oh, that's gonna be the thing that people remember. They're only gonna remember that time that thing went wrong and think that all Keycult boards are total crap or something like that. But anyways, yeah.
Nathan says he should just sabotage Keycult builds.
Yeah.
Hold our keyboards, be like, hey, if you don't give me money this month, I'm gonna fuck up a bunch of your build.
Just gonna drop it down a flight of stairs and go, look what they sent to me. As they said, A stock.
But I think that Keycult and Teja Types definitely have similar. Like he puts a lot of effort into bringing new people into the hobby and making keyboards really accessible, and we would like I think that is a healthy direction for the community. I think it is healthy and good for new people to be interested and excited about this stuff. I think that it does lift everything up. I think that it is like better to have new people flowing and some people flowing out and new people flowing in than it is just have one really stagnant, like curmudgeon-y group of people. So anyways, yeah.
Well, I think transition into the final two last two questions. I'll ask the heavy hitter.
George?
What is your favorite and least favorite thing about the keyboard hobby at this point?
I think my favorite thing is where the keyboard hobby is right now. I know that a lot of people might not like it growing as much, but I think that the fact that it is growing just allows people to be creative without having to worry about a lot of things that they worry about in it. There's a lot more, like Upas released the Satisfaction 75, and that's like a different cool board. And things like the wrist breaker can like sort of exist in like where we are right now. And I think that that's really cool because it allows us to feel like we can be creative and be more out there without it, and we generally feel like it's going to be well received. My least favorite thing about is how sort of exclusionary people make everything out to be. Like, especially like, and maybe this is just a product of us being Keycult and our stuff is hard to get at the moment, but everyone sort of sees not everyone can get a Keycult, or a Keycult is too expensive. It's it feels like people are painting with a really wide brush, that we're like trying to limit our supply or create like artificial scarcity, and I don't think that that's like true. And I know that that's not true, and I think that if people like talk to us about it or saw that our stuff without drawing conclusions, they would come to that conclusion. And I also think that people think that because something is good, that other things are bad, and I really dislike that. Like I think that one of the things that I like about a lot of streamers and stuff is that there's a lot of emphasis on preference. So it's like, oh, it's my preference. That doesn't mean that it's the perfect thing. But I think that a lot of people are like, because this is good, then everything else is like either overrated or bad or blah blah blah, and I don't think that that's particularly healthy. I think that things can be good, and it doesn't have to be so dichotomous.
For me, I think that right now is a really fun and exciting time to kind of be a vendor in the space / a company in the space. One thing that I really appreciate is I really enjoy talking with, I mean, I guess not really working with, but just talking to other people who are trying to turn what was a hobby for them into a lifestyle or a business. And this sort of does mesh with what George said, which is just like the size of the community. Like we're in a position right now where like very few, like I don't see ourselves as competing with any other vendors or any other keyboard makers. Instead, like everyone is sort of rising together and improving together, and so people can be really open with each other and really help without feeling like they're somehow like giving away some sort of like special sauce that's going to like come back to bite them. So that feels really great. It feels very collaborative, and like everyone is out to help each other, and that's really, really cool. The thing that I dislike, the thing that I dislike most right now, I do feel like there is a certain entitlement that some people feel towards. Well, there's just a certain entitlement that some people feel, where they feel like somehow that they are entitled to get keyboards or whatever in the quantities that they want at the price that they want and the time that they want. And that's just like not like you aren't entitled to that thing. Like you don't there's no person who is like deserving of a $600 keyboard or something like that, right? Like we're all doing our best to make this super silly thing happen. And it does become kind of frustrating when people act like we are somehow personally harming them by our keyboards not being available to them. That like feels bad, because I feel like we're actually putting in a lot of effort to make things available, and so it feels like it's just like it feels like hurtful, I guess, when people act like we are somehow hurting them. It's like, no, we're doing our best to like make keyboards available. Like we just sold 200 keyboards when at the beginning of the year we sold 20 or whatever, right? Like we've like literally 10x over the course of like 1 year. Like please be a little more patient and wait for us to grow. Like you don't need this thing absolutely right now. So I do wish that some people were a little more patient. But overall, I think that is a very small minority. And maybe it's a slightly vocal minority. But I think overall it's a very pleasant hobby to be in. I think that the community is right now. I think it's very healthy that there are a lot of little microcosms and need kind of self-select and like into the group that they like most. And yeah, I don't know, it's good.
Nice. Yeah, Metallic Charles says, imagine not having patience in this hobby. You'd be out very quick. Last question, but before we sign off for the night, The Office or Parks and Rec?
Wow. I think that in terms of how much
So
I've
those are like
watched-
George's 2 favorite shows ever.
Yeah. I think that I've seen The Office more than Parks and Rec, but I've seen Parks and Rec a lot. Like I've rewatched The Office probably like close to 10 to 12 times, this like full front to back. And then maybe Parks and Rec I've done it like 5 or 6 times. So I'm gonna say The Office.
I'm gonna go with The Office too. I think The Office is more
Two
rewatchable.
wins.
I think it's more rewatchable than Parks and Rec, but I think Parks and Rec is an amazing show, and I think that it is possible that Parks and Rec has higher highs than The Office, but I think that in terms of consistency and rewatchability, The Office has it.
I think we talked about this before. we've talked about how it's like The Office kind of started it all for that genre of show, and then they innovated for Parks and Recreation. So that's why the stories got better, the highs got higher, consistency's there, and then Brooklyn Nine-Nine's kind of the next iteration of that, where it's probably even more. So like they've
Also an
hammered it
amazing
out.
show.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we're asking you to pick your favorite child.
Right.
That's why I was
All of these are amazing shows.
So, also, Jorge, I don't know if I don't know if someone's told you this. You literally look exactly like Michael Schur, one of the showrunners. He plays.
Oh, really? I've never heard that before. Mose?
Mose, yeah, he plays
Yeah.
Mose. Like I'm looking at a picture side by side, and I'm like, these are
Wow, that's a huge compliment because Michael Schur is a genius and like pretty much the writer and creator of all of the shows that I cherish and love.
like I'm literally side by side, and I'm like,
Yeah, you two actually look quite a bit more like him than I originally thought. You look
He's
more
my
like him
brother.
now than I think.
Yeah, he also makes a cameo in Parks and Rec when they go to Paris. He's on the table next to them where Ben and Leslie are when they're having coffee in Paris.
I guess
I've
I
watched
missed
these
that, but
shows a
also-
lot, so I know I can pretty like one time we were at a coffee shop, and it was like 100 questions, about The Office, and between Zach and I, we got all of them absolutely right. So yeah, it literally is like trying to pick between my two children.
Yeah, that's The Good Place is the only show I dive into. It's
Good
just
show.
time. I'm sure it's amazing. And Pete Davidson's amazing. He's a
Yeah.
hilarious actor. So
The biggest shows are Scrubs, The Office, Parks and Rec. For me, have been the three shows that I've watched the most. Scrubs, when I was in high school and early college, I watched over and over again. I love that show so much. And Parks and Rec and The Office have been more new loves.
So, well, thank you guys very much for showing up. Keycult, as for those who have stuck around, definitely check out their website, keycult.io. The link is in the chat. If you want an amazing board with an incredible attention to detail, please go keep an eye out, get in on the newsletter. I imagine Discord is the best way to keep track of when things are happening. If you want just infinite Instagram and Reddit karma and clout, grab yourself a Keycult. They are some of the best boards that you will ever type on. But thank you guys very, very much for coming and chatting with us, and we hope to see you guys in person soon again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for having us.
I don't know if you guys are going to Denver, but
Next year?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a KeyCon.
the
Yeah,
Keycult,
we'll be there. We'll be
Well
in
done.
Denver for sure.
heck yeah.
So
Yep.
grab a drink.
We'll get more.
You
We'll
guys
get
whiskey.
more.
We
I would
can-
love to grab some whiskey. I'm all about that.
Yeah.
I'm all about that whiskey life. Chewy's not.
For sure.
Not a whiskey guy. I don't drink dark liquor. Story for another time. But quick shout out to our sponsors, mechsondeck.dixiemech.com. Go pick up GMK Dual Shot. I believe they're like right on the cusp of hitting MOQ. Really awesome set. Switchmod.net/mechsondeck for 4% off your lube and springs. And keep an eye out for GMK Metaverse launching January 18th, I believe. And last but not least, Zap Cables. He makes some of the best cables. He's got some of the best parts. You can also build a DIY kit if you can't get one of his. Be sure to check him out.
Well, again, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It was a good time.
Yeah.
Everyone be on the lookout. We do have some news coming out soon about what we will be doing next year. We are doing some changes to the channel. Changing it up a little bit, maybe doing a little bit more streams, a little bit more things happening over here on Mechs on Deck. So stay tuned to our Discord as well as our Keone, thank you for
Keone, thank you for the raid.
for the raid. We're
We're about to raid someone
We're about
else,
to
so
raid
we're
someone
just
else. We're gonna-
moving on through.
spreading the love around.
So
But yeah, thank you for everyone for stopping by. Thank you for all the subs, the hosts, Keone and Apiary, as well as all the follows, we definitely appreciate it. Chewy?
Renaming it to Thok Talk. I'll get the raid set up. Last thing, we do not have current plans to stream on Christmas Day because Christmas is 1 week away from today. So Jorge, light at the end of the tunnel. Christmas is almost over for you. So Keycult finishing out 2019. It's been a great year for y'all. It's been an awesome year for us. So
Yeah,
year
definitely.
all around.
Looking forward to next year.
should be a lot of fun. We are going to raid. Well, it's telling me to raid Keone, although he just raided us. I don't think that would do much. But we're gonna raid I Am Me You Are You, one of our great friends of the channel.
Thanks again, everyone, and we will see y'all next Monday, I believe.
Next Monday. Well, we keep an eye on the Discord. We'll make an announcement. Get yourself a Switch tester.